1, 2, 3.
Perfect. Right, we can start now. Folks, Simon Weir. Simon, how are you, man?
Yes, I'm very good.
Slangs. We had a bit of a stressful start there, didn't we, with the old the Zoom settings, but just to your health, Slangs.
I don't do technology. Apart from sat-navs, obviously. Folks, Simon Weir. If you've never heard of Simon, where have you been? Simon is the ex-editor of Ride Magazine. You were, before that, you were a journalist in a few other publications. You were a bike courier at one point, weren't you? Back in the day, when I was a student, yeah,
many years ago. You have also written for MCN. You've travelled the world, and you're probably, most people out there may well know you for the Bible, that Biker's Britain. If you've never seen this, you need to get yourself it. It is amazing. Every decent road to ride in the UK is in that book. So, Simon, after all that, over to you. Tell us a little bit about you.
So I'm quite, this is rabbit in headlights moment, because I'm normally on the other side of the table. I'm normally asking the questions. I've been a journalist for 25 years. Being interviewed is completely alien. This has never happened before. This is a proper first.
Is it? Exclusive. We like that.
Yeah, genuinely. I mean, I started working on local papers, did a very, very brief stint on the Daily Mail, and then moved into magazines and worked out that's much more relaxing.
Yeah.
You get to put your feet up for half a day, sometimes half a month, it depends on the magazine. And gradually managed to work my way around to working on bike titles. Right. Went to bike in 2003 and stayed, bike, did a little stint on performance bike, and then I was at Ride for far too long, 10 years.
Wow. And
then quit there to ride to Australia.
Yep. Well, we'll get into that, because I'd obviously heard about you, but we'd never actually met. And we met at the Excel this year on the adventure stage with Nathan Millward. And I heard about your amazing trip. I sat in and listened to one of your talks over the weekend there. And actually, people who follow this podcast and my sort of YouTube channel, they contacted me saying, what about Simon Weir? You should get him on as a guest. So thank you very much for coming on.
No, I'm honoured but daunted.
Don't worry about it. It's very chilled. Have you seen any of these before?
Yeah. I've seen a couple. I watched the one with Richie.
Okay.
Because I met Richie Vida we were in fact roommates, and it was classic.
What he said is you slept with him. That's what he said. He said you slept together.
He was very drunk.
It's allowed these days. It's fine.
Yeah, he arrived while I was out at a gig. So I arrived at 1 o'clock in the morning, stumbling drunk, which is great. Next night, I had an early night. Richie arrived 1 o'clock in the morning, stumbling drunk, I think just to get his own back. But no, great guy. So I watched that one, and I watched the one with Sam as well.
Ah, cool.
So they're
cool.
Both good ones.
So the format then. Basically, I put out there who's coming on the next podcast, and then people submit their questions. I try not to read them beforehand, so it's as much of a shock to me as it is to you. But I know there has been a huge response on this. So already we may have to do a part 2 if we're going to get all of these in. Because there are so many questions, how do you feel about us just cracking on with the questions, and then we'll see where it takes us?
Absolutely.
Yeah, cool. Lovely. Right then, folks, as usual, I will go to Patreon first. I'll just mention it, patreon.com/TeapotOne. If you're part of that, thank you. If you're not and you fancy it, check it out. So, first question, David Hemmings. To both of you, what's been the highs and the lows of your careers up to date? Wow. Over to you for this one first. Highs and lows.
I don't know. It depends how you measure them, doesn't it? In terms of professional careers, clearly the low was going, I've had enough of this, and jacking it all in. Yeah. A pretty close second to that was hanging a CBF 1000 from a tree, breaking an awful lot of bones and spending quite a long time learning to walk again. That wasn't a particularly high point.
Oh my God.
That was messy.
What happened in that?
The actual highs. I stuck it through
I managed to turn a small crash into a big one. Rather than just losing the front gracefully after riding like a knob. I thought, I can save this, and picked it up and rode straight into a wood. That was not a good decision. But that's, a week after getting my Rostable diploma in advanced motorcycle tuition. Afterwards, a friend of mine who is a very experienced trainer, a guy called Andy Morrison, who's like Yoda, he just knows everything, said to me, well, you're always most vulnerable when you've just completed a course. Great.
Yeah, thanks.
Now I know. Yeah. So that was definitely the low. The high, you are lucky as a bike journalist that you get to go places and see things and often meet people. I worked in racing for a year before joining the magazines, which I think is really how I kind of got my intro. I worked for the company that did the World Superbike programs.
Right.
And in the course of that, you get to meet racers, get to meet your idols. And what I found is they're all really nice once they've retired. Generally, when they're racing, they're a little bit more prickly because actually the last thing they want to do is waste time talking to a journalist.
Yeah.
I believe they're a lot more media friendly and groomed and kind these days. But I worked in the World Superbike paddock in '99, which was Foggy was at the height of his powers. It was awesome to be there just to see these guys.
Yeah.
And getting to meet them is always a nice thing. I remember interviewing John Reynolds when he just got off the podium after winning his third British title. And he said, well, what's the best thing about this year? He said, well, I've learned a lot. And I thought, you learned a lot? You've just won your third title. How much more is there to learn?
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really, I always think about that because that moment when you stop thinking that you've learned something, that you think you know everything, that's when you're guaranteed to mess up. So
absolutely.
For me, that was, in a bizarre way, that was one of the highest. That was one of the greatest bits of indirect advice I ever got. Is always try and find ways to learn stuff. No matter how good you think you are, there's always stuff that you don't know. There's always someone who's better. There's always someone who's faster. There's always someone who's smarter, who knows more stuff. In terms of job, that's it. In terms of just sort of bike career, obviously the big trip was a big high, but I think some of the big European trips I did for the magazines, there was almost every one. There was a point on each day when you go, that's it. That's as good as it's going to get.
Can't believe this is my job. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, everyone thinks that's what the job is. It's just constant riding around in the sunshine, having a lovely time. And on a good day, yes, that's what it is. But actually, those days are few and far between. I was very lucky that I had the chance to kind of engineer the stuff that I did for the magazine to create those opportunities.
Yeah.
But 90% of the time, it's a desk job. You're sat in an office, you are a finger fairy typing away at the keyboard. That is your job. You don't do anything productive for society. You don't produce anything. You just come in, hit a keyboard until people tell you to go home, with small bouts of falling off motorbikes in between. But those moments when you get out of the office and you're kind of at liberty and just, I did a lot of work with one particular photographer, Weir. Those moments where you finish and you stood, some desolate place, you just turn to each other and go, have we been paid for this?
Yeah.
Those are the highlights, but you probably get 3 or 4 of those a year.
Right, gotcha.
So what was your highlight? What was your best bit on the road?
Do you know what? I've been trying to think about that as you were talking there. Again, for me, I've sort of got 2 careers really. I've got my proper job that I had before I started went full time with this, and then obviously this now. So we'll stick with bikes. Lows, bike orientated, probably. When it all went a bit wrong in Africa on my trip, and I ended up having to come back to the UK for a bit, that was a definite low point. But I think actually probably after I finished the trip and that sort of first year of being home, I've been open about this. I've spoken about it loads on podcasts and on the video. I struggled massively being home. So that was probably the lowest, definitely one of the lowest points I've had in my life. Highs.
How did you pick yourself up from it?
I'm really lucky in that I have, I've got an amazing wife. She gets on my, excuse the language, but she gets on my tits at times, just as I get on hers. But she really is an incredibly supportive and amazing person. She stood by whilst I went round the world, for God's sake. So she's a special person. Nikki was there for me. She knew when to back off and just leave me alone, and she knew when, it was time to have a little chat. And she was amazing. She was brilliant. And I've got very, very good close mates who let me drone on, just bleh. And they were fine. They were great. That just sort of helped really. And I think my old job probably, the nature of my old job in the old bill was, it's like sentry duty. So we'd get sent out for 2 hours at a time, basically, stood on a post somewhere with somebody else, and sometimes you might not know that person. They might be from a different base. So the two of you are stood for 2 hours, sometimes through the night, sometimes during the day, and you just chat. You can talk about anything, and it helped. I suppose it's therapy for me.
It is,
yeah, with a submachine gun, but that helped massively, and you get through it. Well, I got through it, and you realise, do you know what? Life's not bad. Everything's not as bad as perhaps you think, and just figure it out. Highs, wow. I mean, the whole, what it's like being on a big trip like that. It's like, it's never mind day to day. Sometimes, but sometimes it's like hour by hour, isn't it? Or even like every 15 minutes, you can be like, this is amazing, this is shit, this is amazing, this is shit. Things just fluctuate. Career-wise, I think the stage when I made the decision to leave the old bill and go full time at this, it was a little bit of a gamble, because I didn't quite have enough coming in terms of finances to cover my bases. So I sort of took a bit of a leap of faith, thinking I'll get a part-time job or two and I'll figure it out. And I think I was just lucky that Patreon, for starters, has been a lifesaver for me. And then I picked up some sponsors who, although COVID threw a bit of a spanner in the works, they've all come back on board now, and so I think now's probably my high. Just I'm living my dream at the moment, really, and so far managing to keep my head above water. So
well, probably the biggest high is going to come, because at the moment we're not back on the road. So when you get back on the road, that's going to be the big high, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like, in terms of the whole social media with the YouTube, how old do I sound? It's like you don't want to get just fixated with the figures game. How many subscribers have I got? How many followers have I got? And I try not to, but you just do. You just do. It's the first thing you do when you check your phone to look at comments is, well, how many views has that vid got? How many views has that vid got? How many subscribers have I got now? And how many followers are on Facebook or Insta? It's part of it. And it's a drug. It is a drug. It gets addictive, and you think, I've got to keep improving and keep going.
I fully intended, when I set off to do my big trip, that I was going to do the whole thing. Just video the whole thing. Got a drone. Ignored all of my own advice, which is learn to use your tech before you go. But because my departure was delayed because it's all tied up with the sale of my house when I got divorced, and that got delayed, and I just gave up and not planning. And then at the last minute, it came through. So, had my notice in on the flat that I was renting, bought all this tech, ran around frantically tying up loose ends, got on the plane, got the GoPro out of the box, and said, how does this work?
No.
How does this work? Trying to teach myself to use it on the road, and you can't do that.
No.
You need to be able to, you know what it's like. You need to be able to just plug it in and off, and not fanny around going, what do I...
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was a disaster.
Well, I was the same. I started my trip and I didn't know how to edit a video. Some would say I still don't. But, I genuinely taught myself to edit vids literally at the Nürburgring. I stayed in not Sliders. What was his name? It's one of the well-known guest houses, literally at the halfway point in the Nürburgring, and I stayed there for a night. And I remember being in my room and just thinking, I should document some of this. I should do something with all this video that I've got.
Yeah.
And it's like, right, had to Google how do you make a video? So just literally taught myself on the trip.
I should have done that. But I think because I did it the other way around. Because I'm a writer, I literally get off the bike, eat, get the keyboard out, and type. Every 3 days I did a post.
Yeah.
Stuck a few pictures on it, but that is like shouting into a paper bag. There is no mechanism to make that widely available, as opposed to YouTube. You stick it on there and you can tag things, and it gets picked up more because it's more visual. Just written words on the page. It's not so easy to put out. But that's fine. I'm a writer. I'm quite happy just writing, and I didn't. Although part of my idea was that actually, doing the trip would get me onto this side of the table, so I'd be the guy being interviewed, not the one doing the interviewing. I didn't really give a great deal of thought to how that process happened. So I'd have put more effort into prep and learning to blog, or to vlog and all of that stuff. So I went round.
Yeah.
But and ultimately the trip was about me, not about the career.
Yeah. No. I totally get you. I find myself looking at my World Series, and the first sort of 4 or 5 episodes, I'm cringing, thinking, "Oh God, that's utter shit." And you can see it get a little bit better, and I get a little bit more comfortable with the camera as the trip progresses. But I still look at it as a whole and think, "Oh, I'd love to redo that, just to do it again."
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's the. Although my intent, because I limited my trip to 4 months. Consciously, I thought, well, that's my big trip. I won't need to do any others. I'm now thinking, well, there's so many bits I missed. I learned so much about how to do stuff. I did it again. It'll be much better this time. Why don't I do? So, I can't afford to do that again at the minute. But if the opportunity was there, I'd be there.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm the same. I get asked, would you go again? And I've got to admit, initially, I was like, no, I've done it. I've done it now. So I've got no desire to, but that's the last couple of years. That's definitely come back, and it's like, this isn't over. I've there's bits I still need to do. So yeah. Now the trip has come up quite a few times, and I'm assuming people will ask about it. I'm just having a quick scan of some of the next couple of questions. People must be asking about it, but to the same extent, I kind of don't want to miss it in case nobody does mention it in the next few questions, and then we'll move on to someone else and someone else and someone else. This trip, tell us all about it.
I basically picked up where I was going to be when I was 21 or so.
Right.
I left college and I intended to go to Australia. And I didn't, because I met a woman, got married, then got divorced. Thought, well, I'll just carry on where I left off.
And in between was a few years.
In between was 27 years, but we'll ignore that. But I decided I wasn't going to go through Asia and go, Europe, Asia, Southeast Asia, and over that way. Partly because everyone goes that way. I decided I wasn't going to go on an adventure bike because everyone goes on an adventure bike.
Yep. GS wankers. Yep.
So I would have gone in a shot on an adventure bike if it wasn't the fact that's what everyone takes. I thought, I've got to do something a bit different.
Yep.
So I went on the bike that was in my garage anyway, which was a Z1000 SX.
Nice.
And shipped it to Canada. And the theory was I was going to do 5 weeks in the US, 4 weeks in Central America, 5 weeks in South America.
Blimey.
And then, as I say, it was planned to be quite fast because I then wanted to have a month in Australia.
Right.
And I didn't really, because I put it all on hold and I thought, oh God, the house it's never going to sell. It's not going to happen. I'm not going to be able to do it. I've quit my job and I'm not going on the bloody trip. I kind of stopped planning. I just had a vague intention. I'd worked out that I was going to go down and see my friend Bob, who lived near Skyline Drive, so I'd do that.
Right.
And I'd go down Blue Ridge Parkway and do Tail of the Dragon and all of that stuff.
Nice.
And then get the bike serviced in Florida, because that's where a friend of mine lived.
Right.
And then kind of stopped thinking any further. So I went over and I did that, got the bike serviced, and where do I go now? And every day I just ask someone, because you know what it's like in America. Every time you stop and you're on a bike, someone comes up to you and says, "See, buddy, where's that plate from?"
Yeah.
Or, you know, "Oh, I used to have one of those," or "I've got a Harley." But you can say, "Well, look, I'm heading in this direction. What's there to see over there that's good for bikes?"
Yeah.
And after 2 months, I got to Long Beach and thought, rather than spending sort of a third of the time and half of the money in the States, I've spent half the time and 2/3 of the money.
Absolutely.
So I kind of sacked off doing the interesting Latin adventure type stuff and just shipped the bike direct to Sydney.
But do you not find, I find the States so much more interesting than I thought it was going to be. Once I hit the road in the place, it was just like, God, this place is just, it's so diverse in every sense that you can think of.
Yeah.
And I love it now. I love just to go and hit the road. The wife and I go and we land, we hire a big truck and we just hit the road with no plan. And it's brilliant. Love it.
Yeah. I mean, the best thing I did really in some respects was I bought the season pass for the national parks so that you just roll in for free. And it's like $70 for the first one. And I bought one to do Skyline.
Yeah. Just
bought a single ticket. And then he said, "Do you want the season tickets?" "Well, I'm not going to be here for 2 days. I'm going to get this road done. I don't need a season ticket." Got to the Grand Canyon. The guy said, "Do you want a season ticket?" And I said, No, I'm just going to come in once. And that's, he said, No, it's for all the national parks. I went, "Oh."
No, you're talking.
And so after that, I went around ticking them off. And from Grand Canyon to Bryce Canyon, Capitol Reef, all of the different monuments, just Rocky Mountain National Park, Yellowstone, Yosemite. I think I did 18 or 19 altogether.
Wow.
And it's just amazing. It is, if you like putting your bike in an interesting landscape where you go, "Whoa, look at that. I feel tiny."
Yeah.
Some of the national parks are amazing. There's one called Canyonlands, there's lots of off-road trails through there.
Yeah.
And
I'm not an off-road fan.
No, I'm not really. But Chris Scott, the Adventure Bike Handbook legend, said if you get to Utah, you've got to go through the trails in Canyonlands. I said, "I'm on a 7000 SX. I'm not riding it on dirt." Last time I rode on dirt, I ended up with flail chest, nearly died, all the rest of it. I'm not doing any of that.
Was that Spain?
Was that no, that was in South Africa.
Oh, bloody hell.
So
Oh,
was,
sorry. I forgot about that one.
But I'm trying to forget about that one. But I said, "Well, just go on one of the truck tours. They do 4x4 tours through there. Join one of those."
Wow.
And I thought, no, they're like $110. I can't. Got there and I just spent the time looking like, I should have been on one of those 4x4 tours or hire a dirt bike or something. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
It's like nowhere on earth that I've ever been before.
Grand Canyon, one word.
Yeah.
One word. Go on.
Yeah.
You've got one word to describe the Grand Canyon. That's brilliant.
The thing that got me with the Grand Canyon is I did the North Rim, the North Bank, which I had an afternoon to do it, which probably isn't enough.
Yeah.
And it was just, wow, that's amazing. And I went round, and that was the point where I realised that my trip was spiralling out of control because I needed to get tyres. I came out then and realised I needed new rubber. And I was supposed to go down the extraterrestrial highway to California. I couldn't find anywhere down there that had tyres.
All right.
But I found a place that was like a day and a half away that said, "We can do them." So, okay. Rolled up there. "Oh, no, sorry, buddy, we don't get those tyres. We couldn't order them in." Where else can I get them? Well, Salt Lake City or back in Denver.
Yeah.
I thought, "Oh, fuck it, I'll go back to Denver."
Bloody hell.
And when I was there, I stopped off in Utah along the way because they sort of give us 4 or 5 days to get them in. Okay. So ended up in Moab in Utah.
Yeah.
Did all Canyonlands and Arches and Dead Horse National Park, or State Park, it's Dead Horse. Amazing riding over there. Then someone said, "Oh, haven't you done Mount Evans when you were in Colorado first time?" "Well, that's the highest road in America." So,
that's got to be done. Yeah.
I spent the last 5 years chasing the highest roads in Europe. I've got to go and do the highest road in America.
Yeah.
And then someone said, "Oh, yeah, isn't Sturgis starting next week?" And, "Oh no, it's this weekend." So I was the only bloody Kawasaki in South Dakota, I swear to God. But
surrounded in a sea of Harleys.
Yeah, went up, did Sturgis, then went over, did Yellowstone, which I'd always wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point, my timing was just out of the window. And I thought, well, I enjoyed the Grand Canyon so much. Why don't I loop round, do some of the deserty stuff like Joshua Tree, and Death Valley and Vegas, and also do the other side of the Grand Canyon. And this time I gave myself a full day for it. You know, got there at 9 a.m. and was there until about half 4, half 5. And I've stomped up and down. I've taken the bus. I've seen all of it. I thought, wow! And it's the scale of it's just inconceivable.
Immense.
And it just wow! And then I left the park and riding on, and there it is. It's not a national park. It's just there for mile after mile after mile beside the road. You go, gee, I thought vaguely after the day you got the handle, the scale of it, and there it is. The bit I've seen like that much of it. It's just
just it blew me away. I've said it before. It's one of those places where, like, it looks amazing in pictures and video, but it doesn't do it justice. When you actually get there in person, you're just like, this is even better in person. It's phenomenal.
Yeah. I got off the bus on the south side because they all the way along. You've got the bus. There's one section that you can't go to on your own vehicle. You have to take the bus. And it goes on. It has all these regular stops so you can get out and see the different viewpoints. And the one I said, the next stretch, if you're going to get off and walk, you've got to be fit and able because it's the most dangerous bit with the biggest drops and all the rest of it. It goes past a bit called the Abyss. And I thought, that's the one for me. So I got off and stomped along there and, in Kevlar jeans, super techs, carrying a leather jacket, sweating like a thing that sweats a lot. And it was fantastic. I think I saw 3 or 4 other people on the whole walk on that.
Wow.
And there were points where the trail goes along the very top of the drop and you're maybe 6 or 8 inches away from, the way it goes down in steps. Like the first step seems to be like 30 or 40 meters just vertical. Then there's a bit of a shelf and it goes to another 50 meters. And it's just you're leaning over the edge getting, am I getting vertigo? I'm getting vertigo. Go back the other way. Absolutely loved it.
Did you do the, there's a walkway.
Is it the glass bridgey thing?
Yeah, it's on the native side, isn't it? It's on the native Indian side.
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't do it? No, I didn't get on that one.
Too tight-fisted.
Do you know the Scottish in me came to the fore on that? Because you know what it's like when you're on a trip. You're always penny pinching. Well, you start off not penny pinching, but towards the end you're like, shit, I've actually got to get home and like eat and towards the end I was penny pinching massively, and I was the same. I was like, so I've paid for this bit and I'm here, but I've got to pay more to get over there onto that amazing walkway. Nah, you're all right. I'll stay here.
Yeah,
I'll just have to go back.
I had that in Monument Valley.
Oh, did you?
I kind of got to 4 corners, and it's here's money for this. Want to take a picture? Here's money for this. Yeah. Go down the next bit, money for this, and you've got the long road that you kind of the Marlborough advert road with the Monument Valley's there in the background, the big lumps, and you ride down there. You go, this is great. I'm sure you can get closer. Yeah, you got to turn off into the dirt road. Obviously, I'm on the Essex, so I'm not sure about the dirt road. And then you go, Navajo land will take more money off you. And I thought, every time I stop, I'm just paying money. Just to park, it's money. So that's the last bit. I'm not paying any more money today. I'll just go to Pearson and go to bed.
So obviously the States ended up taking significantly longer than you planned. And then from the States, did you go straight to Australia? No, you went to New Zealand, didn't you? Did you not do a bit of time in New Zealand?
I shipped the bike to Oz, but and I budgeted on, I got loose prices for air freight from Santiago. And Santiago to Sydney was going to be about £1,200, same as the air freight from London to Toronto. I thought, this is great.
That's cheap.
Got to LA and said, how much? And said, that'll be $5,500.
Yeah.
That's the rest of the budget. What am I going to do when I get to Oz? How much is it by sea? That's $550. We'll do by sea.
Wow.
So sent the bike by sea, went to Sydney, which is where my brother lives anyway. So, and it's quite nice because I'm dual national. I kind of rolled up and they do the whole thing of welcome back, Mr. Weir. So,
did you put on a dodgy Oz accent?
No, I just smile and wave, boys. No one knows. But I mean, it's because my brother's been there for 10 years. He gets the stick all the time. Says, come on, Cole, you're just a plastic. Obviously, you're a pommy with a sticker, aren't you?
Yeah.
Because he lives in Sydney. He says, do you know Lane Cove National Park? I go, yeah. Well, my grandfather established that when he was Minister of Lands and Deputy Premier of New South Wales. Well, if you want to go down and see my family, you can see them on the welcome wall for the first people to get here. So
before you,
yeah. So yeah, I might have the English accent, but I'm not a plastic Aussie. I obviously am because I've been here my whole life. But that's quite a nice kind of. He's been there long enough to get the perfect put down. So. But yeah, I went to stay with them, did a bit of work for Aussie MCN, did a few bits of scratching around, wrote up some bits for British MCN.
Right.
But because it was going to take 4 weeks for the bike to get there, I thought, well, I can't sit around. So I sat around for a week. Went to New Zealand was going to be 10 days, and I then had to come back a bit early to do a Harley launch for Aussie MCN. And the way I got to know a lot of, particularly Spain and Italy, was on motorbike launches, which is great because a manufacturer picks you up, scoops you off, and takes you somewhere nice.
It shows you some great roads.
Yeah, and I pay attention to where the roads are and pretty much remember them and make notes. And I got back and thought, fantastic. I'm going to get someone showing me that in Australia. I said, the launch is based around Manly. Where do you live? Manly. And we're going to go up to the end of the province. Where have I been? The only launch I've ever been on in a country where we used the only roads in the country that I already knew.
Oh, no.
I was just wondering, look, there's a dealership there. No, there's a good cafe around there. There's, this bloke knows the country. Now, I wonder he's a travel journalist. No, this is the only place I've bloody been in Australia. So, but it was good. New Zealand blew my mind.
I've never been, dying to go.
I could have spent a month there at least. It's like Scotland, especially the South Island. So Scotland built on the scale of the American West. Yeah. That's the only way I can describe it.
Yeah.
You know, the kind of, when you're going up the West Coast, you've got all the kind of the moors with the big hills in the background, especially when you're around Loch Assynt and you kind of turn up towards Carlescu where the curvy bridge is, and you come over the top and there's that kind of bit of a hairpin and a sweepy road. It's like that, but 4 times as big.
Wow. My uncle lives there.
Snow on the top.
My uncle's lived there for 35 years now, and he says exactly the same. So he's my uncle on my mum's side. My mum was English, but I remember him coming up to Scotland before him and his family emigrated. So we did the whole Highland thing with him and took him around that. And he's always said New Zealand is like Scotland on steroids, basically.
Yeah. It's just amazing. The only downside is, obviously there's the weather because it's Scottish weather. And I arrived one day before the first day of spring.
Right.
So I left LA in 28 degrees, cloudless blue skies, and got off in Sydney, and there's rain lashing the ferry as I'm bobbing across from Circular Quay to Manly, feeling a bit queasy and think, why? Just shivering.
Whose idea was this?
And what stupid fool thought this was a good idea? And then got to New Zealand, and it was exactly the same. Horizontal rain, 6 degrees. And then it brightened up. And when the sun comes out, you go, now I get it. So I think the tip is don't go in November because it's, that's not Southern Hemisphere summer. That's still Southern Hemisphere cold, shit and miserable.
Right, gotcha. Right, okay. I mean, that is literally touching the surface of your trip, isn't it? That is just a scratch. I am almost 100% sure people will ask about your trip in the questions. but we've covered one question so far, and I think
we could edit it. Yeah,
I think
go back to it.
there's probably about 30 alone in Patreon, and then we've got Instagram and Facebook to go after that as well. So
we'll do quick answers.
Well, good luck.
I'll try to stay on the point.
if previous podcasts are anything to go by, it won't be quick. Andy Horton, questions. What's the most fun you ever had riding a bike? And if you could influence the government to support motorcyclists, what would you propose? Right, most fun.
Oh.
Bosh. Most fun on a bike.
That's a really tough one. I think possibly a day on the KTM Adventure Rally in... it was based out of a little town called Bardonecchia, and it's a neck of the woods that I know really, really well. And I went there and turned up. They said the journalists are all riding in a 100% off-road group with Yoki. Yoki Sala is KTM development rider. Is an amazing rider, lovely guy as well. But I don't remember if you remember the original Adventure 950 launch video with the bike drifting on the road as well as the dirt. Well, that was Yoki, and I thought, I'm a particularly shit off-roader. He will kill me. And also, from my point of view, the story I went to get was, who are the people that are there? So I kind of said, no, I'm not doing this. I need to ride with the customers. So I was going to do a 50-50 day of half tarmac, half off-road, see how that went.
Yeah.
If I was confident with that, I'd then do an all off-road day, but with customers.
Yeah.
And then they did an all road group. Well, I lost the group within, or maybe half a mile of the first group, because I stopped because I thought there was someone behind me. So I stopped to mark a turn.
Oh no!
And waited 20 minutes, and no one turned up. And of course, I carried on. They bloody left me. So the next day, I tried that again with a 50-50 group, and it was great. It was a really good trip. And the next day, do the road group, and I switched bike to one that was on road tyres and all this, and had the mirror just going like that. So I stopped to fix it at the top of one of the passes. By the time I got it, the same thing. They'd all buggered off. There was no one waiting for the back marker. But that's fine. I thought, well, I know where I am. I know vaguely the route. I didn't have a copy of the map. I'd had us squizzed it over the shoulder. I thought, I know where it's going. They've got to stop there for coffee, so just road. No sign of them. Well, if I push on ahead a bit, I can go there and put in a little extra bit and get round, and then I'll wait for them there because they're going to have to come past that cafe. Come past that cafe. About 2 in the afternoon, I thought, what should I do? Should I just go back on the roads I think they're going to do, or do I just accept I've lost them? At which point, I'll now put a stupid big deviation in and go and ride up. There's a pass in Piemonte called the Colle dei Morti, Pass of the Dead,
right.
Hill of the Dead. And it's fabulous.
Nice.
It's really, I mean, it's wild, it's untamed. First time I was there was a dead body on it. Blanket, pair of feet, air ambulance, and men saying, I thought, Jesus Christ, they actually kill people. And I mean, that was on a guided Ducati trip, and there was a big group of tourists all being marshalled by actual Italian policemen to keep them all safe, even though they're hopping over the borders between there and France. Yeah. And obviously journalists, we just did what we wanted. So kind of rolled up, but there was one of the big tour groups there. We stopped and asked, what's going on there? And so hill walkers had a heart attack. Okay.
Jeez.
But I went back to ride that because I hadn't ridden it for 5 or 6 years. And it was fabulous, absolutely fabulous. And just pushed on. I ended up getting back to the hotel after about 10 hours. Everyone else had been back, showered, eaten, and I'm wrong. They're leaving the restaurant, and I'm just going in to get a shower.
Oh no!
That was probably the most fun I've had. It was all day. It was challenging riding in places. It was the most amazing scene. It's my favourite place, and it's one of those things I'd always said, I don't need a map down there. I know where I'm going.
Yeah.
And I actually proved myself right, because that was a route I'd done so many times I didn't need to stop and check and Google map it. I just rode where I'm coming up here, I recognised it all, and I had a huge sense of smugness, but mostly it was just, what a bloody relief. That was brilliant.
Yeah.
And I think the reason it was so good, partly it was that kind of sense of relief and satisfaction. The relief that when I say, oh, well, I know this, actually, I proved it to myself that I'm not just bullshitting people.
You can do it, yeah.
I can actually back it up by doing it. But also, it was just a complete sense of liberty.
Yeah.
With a little bit of a sense of playing hooky, because obviously I'm meant to be there every coffee stop interviewing a different punter, finding out where they've come from, what they like. I'm not doing any of that, so it's a little bit kind of...
So how did you get around that?
Proper free stolen time.
How did you get around that then in terms of work with the launch? Did you just blag it? Or...
I just wrote a different story. I just wrote about me having a nice time and said, and there were other people there.
Nice.
But I didn't have the box out with talking heads, which is what I wanted to get.
Yeah.
But at that point I was editor, so I could do what I wanted. Still wearing the wrong
Nice. You've got to have the more perks, haven't you? You've got to have some perks.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, yeah, but what would you say is the most fun you've had?
Oh, blimey.
On one day, the most fun day?
Sheesh. I mean, just every day you make it to wherever it is you're going. Really is sort of a good day, really, isn't it? But I think some of the first sort of European road trips I did with my mates, I remember one of the first ones I ever did with a couple of mates, 3 of us. We'd literally just passed our tests not more than 6 months before, and the 3 of us just hit the road into France. And I mean, ridiculous mileage. You're talking like between 5 and I think maybe 700-800 miles a day, just riding for 16 or 18 hours. It's insane. It's insanity, all on sports bikes. But we had a blast because we had no idea. We knew nothing else. We knew no different, and we were just, mid-30s, hitting the road, away from the other halves, having a great time. And I look back on those sort of memories quite fondly. I've had some great trips when we started to explore like Spain. My early Spanish road trips, again with the same sort of mates, had some right good giggles. And then I've got to say, I just took out about 3 or 4 weeks ago. I took the new KTM Gen 3 Super Duke R. I had that for a couple of weeks, and that bike got my soul. I felt like I used to feel when I first started riding. I just loved that bike. Yeah, I haven't bought it. I haven't, because by the time you listen to this, folks, the new bike reveal vid will be out, so you'll know I didn't buy it, but it was close. I nearly did buy it. Yeah. This is an interesting.
That's the worst thing with testing bikes.
Yeah.
Everyone you get off, you go, oh, it's great. I could have one of those.
It becomes like a drug, doesn't it? It's like every new bike, you're like, oh, this is good, this is good, this is good. Andy Horton's second question is a really interesting one. If you could influence the government to support biking, what would you propose? Ooh.
I mean, I would suggest that there are 2 things that need to be done. The first of which is that you have to have spent a year on a 125 before. Teenagers have to spend a year on a 125 before learning to drive a car.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Yes.
Partly because that gives better road sense.
Mm-hmm.
It'll encourage parents to pay more attention when they're driving.
Absolutely.
I suspect it would lead to more traffic at A&E, because 17-year-olds.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of it would mean that you have a generation that suddenly understands biking.
Yeah.
And 90% of them would stop, but 10% would keep going.
Yeah.
And if at the moment only 5% start, you've doubled the number of people coming into biking.
Absolutely. Yeah.
For me, it's as much about educating drivers as it is about getting people to buy into the bike lifestyle. But you sow that seed so much earlier, and you create a more sympathetic environment for motorcycles.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly, you're not seen as. I mean, I think the old cliche of the outcast, the 1%, the biker. I think that's nonsense.
Of course it is. We're all accountants. You know what I mean? When you look at most bikers, they're like us.
Yeah. When I started riding, it was cheap transport, and now I've always said now it's a rich man's hobby.
Yeah, certainly.
And it's a massive shift. Whereas I think actually, if it was seen as something normal, not a fringe activity, something everyone does and some people continue it, that would just change its position. And I think particularly the other thing that needs to be done is to look at, more than anything else, the use of a motorcycle as urban transport. You know, the way that bikes being clobbered by the ultra low emission zone in London, it's just nonsense. You know, if you want to reduce emissions and reduce traffic and reduce congestion, get more bikes on the road.
Absolutely, 100%.
Not more push bikes. You know, with the best of the world, I used to live in West Hampstead and work in Farringdon, and I had to wear a suit. There's no way in hell I'd go in a little push bike. Yeah, and that's within London. When I moved to Watford, and I was working in Waterloo, I'm not going to cycle from Watford to Waterloo on a push bike. Yeah. Obviously, I'm nowhere near fit enough, but also it's just too far. You look at the number of people commuting into a city, and if if the culture is to kind of reduce dependence on public transport because of the virus or all the rest of it, but certainly to kind of clean up city centres, public transport's great for people within its catchment, but for the majority of people that live outside that work in town, a push bike is not an option. So once you understand the benefits of a motorcycle for commuting, suddenly you change its position in the food chain, and it doesn't become a fringe thing it becomes an integral part of how society needs to move around.
Absolutely.
So I think if you had more young people having to ride for a bit and making them a core part of getting people into the office, suddenly bikes become, well, the way they're seen on the continent. It's just completely normal.
And it is a totally different mindset in just about every other country in the planet with regards to bikes, isn't it? I mean, like you said, the continent, like Spain, I keep on going on about Spain, I do apologise, but Spain's a prime example. You know, they are uniquely aware of bikes, and they're very pro bikes, and there's no sort of stigma around it like you get in this country. You know, the government hate you in this country if you're a biker, whereas in Spain it's just like, what, you don't ride a bike, what's wrong with you? You know.
Everyone is, I mean, I only ride I was going to say everyone and his granny rides a bike in Spain. I probably only ride bikes because of my gran.
Oh, do you?
Because I was riding bikes in fields, but wanted to get a road bike. And my parents, when I was 16, said, "No, you're far too big. It won't move with you sat on top of it." 50cc. Got to 17, I was going, "No, I want a road bike. I want a road bike." Then I got a girlfriend who lived inconveniently far away. My parents started thinking about it. It was like, no. And my grandmother intervened. She said, "Look, in the war, I rode a motorbike all the time. That was my transport. I didn't have a car. No one had cars. Had a bike, perfectly safe. Let the boy have a bike."
Awesome.
So biking grannies is what you need.
My
so that's the third way to get people in.
Exactly. Well, I'm almost the same. My nana, my dad's mum, my nana, she grew up in Edinburgh, and her dad was a copper. He was I didn't realise this till much later on in life, but he was old Bill. But she used to do, the wall of death, where you get the bikes and they go round and round and round. Well, I think it was her dad, the copper. He used to do that. He used to do wall of death, and she used to sit on the handlebars. my little old nana was telling me stories about her sat on the handlebars of the bike while it's going round inside this cage, the wooden platform thing. That's mental. That's awesome.
That is properly mental.
Yeah, definitely.
You wouldn't get me doing that.
No, not anymore. No way, I wouldn't do that. Right, that was a good question, that, Andy.
That was.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you there. I think everybody should have to do the stint on a bike, definitely at a young age. Right, Nick Turnbull. Bruce and Simon, question to both of you. As a regular reader of lots of magazines, especially MCN and Bike, which I first started reading in 77, when my dad bought me an FS1E, best present I ever got, I was wondering...
A fizzy.
Yeah. I was wondering where you both think the future of traditional magazine is going. I can't help but notice, topical one, I can't help but notice that the same articles crop up in different magazines owned by Bauer, of course, and most journalists appear to be freelance these days. I have to admit that for a lot of bike reviews, I head to YouTube and the likes of Bruce's channel, thank you, for their reviews. There's others like Bennett's and Visordown who are more commercial but offer good content. Basically, is there a future in the printed word and pictures?
That's very tricky, you know. I mean, I now work on a local newspaper, not on a magazine, but that's just I got off the plane and there was a job, and I might need a job for a few weeks, and then we have lockdown, and here I am. Magazine circulations have been in decline for a long time. You know, when I started on bike in 2003, we sold more than 100,000 copies a month, every month, or averaged out over the year. It was average for 100,000 copies, I think 103. When I left, I think it was selling 36. You know, that's a massive decline. You know, pretty much a 70% decline. But that's why, you know, when I joined Bike, we had a staff of 15. Well, I think when I left it was basically, well, I think now all the magazines work with one fixed editor, and then all of the writers are in a pool, which is why you will see similar feel. I mean, the job of the editor is always to make the content distinct from the others, and in a way, it's quite useful when you've got rival magazines under one roof because the rivalry becomes more bitter. That worked really well when you had, especially when I was on bike, and you know, we hated PB and PB hated us. And we all ignored Ride because it was all about locks and waterproofs, and you know. And then I went to Ride and I sneered at us because they were frivolous and, you know, and flocks were important. But you know, the job of each magazine is to identify what's important to your readers and deliver them that in the most relevant way. The benefit that the Bauer has is the experience of the staff. You know, if you look at, you know, Martin, who is the, you know, he started on bike 8-10 months after me, fresh out of college, as a staff writer. Got made redundant when they had one restructure. I brought him back into Bauer as my deputy on Ride. And now they've restructured and he's sat in that pool. But basically for 16, 17 years, all he has done is test motorbikes. He's just done through lockdown, he's done a look back of every launch that he's done. I haven't got pictures of any of them, I don't think. He's kept pictures from all of them. Wow. And it's fascinating. Just as also watching his evolution as a road tester. Right? So these guys have a proper back catalogue. They know how one bike compares to the other. And as long as they're doing that thing of talking to readers and talking to people who pay for their motorcycling, and not living in the journalist bubble, which is always the danger where everything's free. You don't pay for tyres, you don't pay for insurance, you don't even pay for fuel. Certainly you don't pay for leathers. How much does that crash helmet cost? It's a phone call. You know, if you become detached from reality like that because everything's so easy, you stop asking the relevant questions.
100%.
So the job of the editor is to keep everything on point, keep it focused on what matters to the readership. And then get someone who's got all the relevant experience to tease out the detail, not get blinded by the PR bullshit because they've been doing it for long enough that whatever, just give me the keys. Then the magazine should have a distinct voice but have the expertise. You'll see similar features crop up all the time because sadly there aren't that many really big issues in motorcycling. And everyone needs to address them. If you don't address, electric bikes these days, or the emissions tax, or just where to ride, you're ignoring what a lot of readers are going to want, but also you're not doing a service to those that are bearing with you. You've got to address those issues. The job is to address those in a more distinctive manner than your rival. You should never have a feature that could appear in either bike or ride. They've got to have distinct treatments. And that's that's the really hard thing to do. And when you've got the riders working for a pool, so one day they might be working on ride, one day they might be working on bike, that's going to make it more challenging for them. I mean, there are, because the staff numbers have shrunk, you've ended up with guys that used to be staff working as freelance, but the number of freelance has diminished. Lots of guys have gone away from it. I'm living in Norfolk, not close to Peterborough, pointedly because I didn't want to try and get back on that freelance treadmill. I wanted to do something different when I came back.
Yeah.
So I can be as rude as I like about it, really, but I won't be. just in case. Burn no bridges. But it's very hard. Everyone thinks they can do the job. Because I can spell, and you'd be surprised how many people can't. And I can ride a bike, and again, you'd be surprised how many people can't.
Yeah.
Not to the level that's required to test a bike. I think I was at the bottom minimal level to do the job properly. I wouldn't ever do a track launch because I'm not a good enough track rider. Whereas MCN has Leavesy, who's a multiple LRO Superbike champion. So
Adam Child, all that lot.
Yeah, so they have the ability to push the bike hard enough to analyse it in a way that's meaningful to the guys that will use that top 10% of the performance. But they've got the experience to put it in perspective.
Yeah.
And you have... The thing is, for our conclusion when we worked on Ride was that actually for our readers, that wasn't the key priority. The key priorities were things like how reliable is it? How well made is it?
Yeah.
How comfortable is it?
Yeah.
What's the tank range like? What's the servicing cost like? What's the nitty-gritty practical stuff? And you want to know what the performance is, but you're not really worried about the outer limits of it. You want the day-to-day livability was the Ride concern.
Yeah.
Whereas the bike is about the absolutes, and MCN should be everything. Whether they can survive with the volumes of people that are buying magazines these days, I have no idea.
Yeah.
And I'm quite glad I'm not there to find out.
I've got to admit, as a sort of, not the enemy, but we're sort of, us lot over on YouTube in particular, really, obviously, it's weird. On the social media side, you've got, it's almost two camps. There's the YouTube brigade, and then there's an Instagram brigade, and it's like both try and dabble in the other, but you tend to find you're either big on YouTube and not that big on Instagram, or the other way around. It's not often you get someone that's big on both platforms, weirdly. But, sorry, go on.
I was saying, my impression is that Instagram doesn't deliver the depth.
No, it's visual.
YouTube, it's down.
Yeah.
YouTube, it's down to the individual person doing the film. And I think I stopped doing launches about the time that the rise of the Instagrammer. And the stories I've heard from the last couple of things, the traditional journalists, and they are guys from Bike Social, guys from Visor Down. They're all guys that have been in the trade for a long time. They'll get to lunch and go, right, well, where's the tracking pictures? We need to do more miles. And Instagram said, well, I just need a good backdrop now, I'm done. So, but you've barely ridden the bike. How can you tell people what the bike is like? Well,
that really annoys me. Annoys me.
Yeah.
I know people that literally get a bike for 20 minutes or half an hour. 20 minutes or half an hour, and they do a review vid on it. And I'm just like, how can you review it? You've only been on it like 20 minutes. That's insane.
Yeah.
But it's just the way it is.
I remember I did a launch once with one guy who, I think it was the second gen liquid cooled GS Adventure, and he found it a bit intimidating, so put it in rain mode and wouldn't take it out of rain mode because it was too much. How are you going to tell your readers what it's like in sport mode if you won't ride it in sport mode? How are you going to tell them what it's like in normal mode if you won't ride it? And wouldn't take it off road because it was too big and heavy and dangerous. Well, how on earth are you proposing to tell anyone anything meaningful about it when you've ridden it around like my granny's cat?
I sort of, not the opposite of that, but I have had to force myself to use. I just chuck it in, like for the GS or any bike. I put it in the dynamic or the sport. It's just like give me the engine. Just give me the hooligan bike. And I'm not the best rider in the world, but in my head I'm like, why bother with the other engine modes? Because if I don't want to ride as fast, I just won't crank the throttle. But the amount of people that have then said to me, well, look, we ride with pillions, or sometimes I don't want all the power that's available. I want a smoother ride. And it's like, I've got to stop thinking about, this is just me, how I enjoy riding it. And you have to start putting on the generic head, don't you? And that's been a big learning curve for me.
Especially the more modes you've got, and the cleverer the modes are and the more interdependent they are, there are so many factors you've got to check.
Yeah.
But it is that thing of, I think smoothness comes from there. I'm not really worried about the mode, but you actually have to kind of go send it on its head. If you put it in the smooth mode and you go, right, I'm now going to be a hooligan. What happens when you're in a different mode? Because actually, does suddenly the traction come on? And do lights start going off, and you're kind of, all you're doing is just working out where the lines are drawn for that bike's brain. But that's the hard part.
That's a good point. The
difficult bit sometimes.
I've definitely been guilty of that, and also I'm bad for the actual facts and figures about, the actual technical blurb about the bike, because I just get on it. How does it make me feel? And I've kind of just put my hands up to people, and I'm not intelligent enough to remember all the technical blurb, because sometimes you only get the bike for a day, sometimes I might have it for 2 days. Granted, sometimes you might get it for a week or 2 weeks or whatever, but I just sort of say to people, if you want the technical side of things, go to like the Missenden Flyer. He's incredible at the technical stuff. He's got one of those analytical brains. He's brilliant, but he'll say himself he will never push a bike to its limits, whereas you got people like Lamb Chops, who's just an outright hooligan, and if the thing will wheelie, he'll have it wheeling down the street, whereas with me it's just like, I'll do my best to try and keep it upright and not crash, and does it put a smile on my face, and it's sort of like how you were saying, how the different publications, ride, bike, performance bike, all that sort of stuff, that definitely seems now to have moved across into, like in my world in YouTube,
it has.
Different channels have that different approach to different things. So it's like every box is getting ticked.
Ultimately, everyone wants something different from. There was a great question I saw on Twitter the other day. Someone said, "So who's the best road tester?" And actually, the best road tester is the one that tells you what you want to know in the way that you want to hear it.
Absolutely,
It's all of the pros are equally good at dissecting a bike, and they're all probably equally good at communicating it, but they're all talking to slightly different people. And so some people won't like the way that Nevesy puts a road test together. Some people won't like the way that Chad puts a road test together. But for some of them, that's perfect. Others will go, no, I like the way Mufka's very analytical and dry with just one little joke. And it's about what. It's not just about the information, it's about the packaging.
Absolutely.
And that's why you have different magazines, why you have different channels.
Of course. One person's chalk is another person's cheese, isn't it? It's just what it is,
That was a very serious conversation.
It was. I found this on these. This is what I love about this format, about the podcast, the long form format, is that you start on one path and you end up going all over the place, and you can get quite deep into things. You've got the time to do it, don't you?
Yeah.
Hopefully people are still awake. Right, here's a good one from Stuart Stokes. What's your favourite country to ride in and why?
Honestly? Any country apart from Germany.
I'm glad you said that.
Because there are brilliant roads in Germany, but large amounts of it are flat. And the bits that aren't flat, quite often congested. There are some fabulous little pockets. I'm not a big fan of the Black Forest. I've done it too many times, and I've just watched it get busier and busier and busier. So I like places like Odenwald, the Thüringerwald. If you go right over to the Czech border, there's one called Bayerischer Wald. Anywhere that's basically a German forest, there are normally good roads because they're all mountainous, covered in trees, because they can't build a factory on it. So those bits are bloody great. But you get to the Schwarzwald and it's just full of tourists.
Yeah, it's true.
And it's very busy. So, I mean, literally, we just go 40 miles north of Baden-Baden, sort of northeast. There's an area called the Pfalzerwald, or Pfalzwald, which the roads are every inch as good as the Black Forest. And in fact, there's one, the B48, which I think is better than the B500. And there's no one there.
Yeah.
There's no 70k limit. You haven't got a policeman every 17 metres. You know,
the police seem to be a growing issue in Germany now for bikes. Like I'm mates with a couple of expat Brits who live over there now and do YouTube channels like Bulldog Gaz, Andy Mancam, and The Likeable Rider. So I've been over to do like rides with them, and I think we went to. Was it called the Fashwald?
The Felswald.
Yeah, there.
Felswald.
That one. I think we went to that. I think we went to that area. Gotcha.
Just there.
Yeah. But they were telling me there's roads now where you can't ride on a Sunday because of the noise limits. The police are starting to crack down on like noise levels. Like I know in Tyrol in Austria, they've got a decibel limit now, depending on what bike you're riding, and they just seem to be cracking
94
down.
is the limit, and most bikes, as stock, most Triumphs particularly, most Triumphs are 97, most Ducatis 98 decibel, if not louder.
They've just had to alter it, I believe, because of that, because just about every bike was failing. I had Schaff on. I don't know if do you know Schaff Valentine? He works for 1000 PS, you know, the German channel.
Yeah.
He's one of their video editors, and he was on. He's based in Austria, and he was telling us that in that area in Tyrol, the police use multistradas, and their own bikes fail the noise limits, so they can't use those bikes in those areas. You're like, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
that's madness.
Everyone here that follows my channel knows my answer, and it's Spain. For me, out of the entire planet, if I could go one place, it would just be Spain, because the weather's great, the roads are great. It's a biking country. People love bikers. The old Bill don't care as long as you're in the mountains and you're not taking the piss in the villages. And it's cheap.
Yeah.
I just love the place. It's great. That ticks every box for me.
Yeah, Spain is special, but between Spain and bits of France there, because I love the French Alps. That's where I kind of...
Yeah.
Because I've been riding around for ages, for literally years, but always I used the bike to go and see people.
Yeah.
So and when you've got someone further away, I would literally, I've got to get to Lyon in a day, so I just motorway all the way to Lyon, hemorrhaging fees, drink heavily for 2 days, then get back with a hangover and crawl back to Calais, hemorrhaging tolls. And then I had a flip, because I pointed out that I suffer a little bit with the head for heights. When I was on bike, we had a trip coming. It was a Ducati trip to the mountains, and said, "Oh, well, if you've got a bad head for heights, you go and do it."
Right. Yeah, thanks very much.
And I loved it. And suddenly I went from kind of like nice hills and enjoying the Auvergne and little bits of that, but not really focusing on riding for the sake of riding particular roads. That was it. Addicted, absolutely addicted.
Yeah.
So that kind of French-Italian Alps kind of area, absolutely love. And all the way around through the Dolomites.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, Swiss Alps are just amazing. But Spain is, I think, apart from the big flat plainy bits, it's the most consistent standard of awesome riding. There are bits of it where you just can't believe what it's there, and there's no one there. Absolutely no one there.
That's like I've done the Swiss Alpine passes as well, and they are breathtaking. The views are out of this world, but the roads are rammed full, and the old Bill, it's constantly in your mind. If I get done here, I am screwed.
The fines are astronomical.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Whereas I've just touched wood. I'm probably going to get busted when I go to Spain next month now, but I've never had an issue with the old bill over there. I've said it before. The only time I think that I've actually had an altercation with the old bill was on the N260, first time I ever did it, because I was sat behind two old bill that were in front of me on scramblers, and they sort of turned round to look at, I'm on my Gixxer, they turned round to look at me and just waved me by, and they were like, wheelie, go. And they were actively wanting you to enjoy the road. So I thought, this is the country for me.
So which is your favourite place to ride in Spain? Picos, Pyrenees, Extremadura? Where do you go for choice?
I used to love the Pyrenees, but I'm a definite Picos convert now. I love the Picos. And I sort of go all round the Picos now, not just that, that sort of green triangle that everyone does, but just get out and really enjoy it. And up into northern Portugal as well. Stunning, yourself, the stunning roads over there. But I've started to explore a lot more in southern Spain, because I do some stuff with Toro Adventure down there. Excuse me, little plug for Linden. And down sort of north of Malaga and up into the mountains all around there. There's some cracking roads down there as well.
Yeah. Have you done the road from Sahara to Grazalema?
Oh, God. I probably have, but I don't know the road. How bad's that? See, when I'm
Puerto de las Palomas.
Bless you. If I'm leading, then obviously I'm looking at my map and I can visualise everything and I know the places. But when I go down to Toro, I follow Lyndon or Adrian, one of the other guides, and you're just following, and I'm just enjoying the road, and I'm sort of very ignorant to the places around about me.
So that's my thing I'm lucky with. I remember where I've been.
Yeah.
I've never been there once. I can normally go back exactly the same place. Yeah. And I've kind of taught myself to find them on the maps and check. And what's good with Google Street View is brilliant, because I'm fairly sure it's that road.
Go and have a look.
And you can click, and until you can find something, you go, no, definitely that. I remember that house. Yeah. That there, and then you go down a bit, there's a church. Yep, there it is. That's definitely the right road.
Isn't that amazing? Like I remember even like going back to 2012 on my trip, the Street View was just starting, so there were places. I remember, like when I was looking at places in Morocco and stuff, routes in Morocco, I could use Street View to look, and is that actually a road? Is it tarmac, or what's the state of it? And I could look at some places and go, I'll be all right on the Gixxer on this, and other places you'd be like, I don't fancy trying that.
Not a chance.
What an amazing resource.
It's absolute. I find it. I don't like to use it to pick things. I do a lot of stuff by getting recommendations. So I'm going to be picking your brains for good roads as well, because my theory is if one person recommends a road, might be all right, might be rubbish. If three people recommend it, then you've got a fairly good chance it's going to be all right. Yeah. And then just that kind of peace of mind, then I'll have a look at it. But normally I try and, all the route planning I do, I try and use routes that roads I've ridden myself. And if I haven't, then I try and get at least 3 recommendations for once.
Yeah, same.
Because it's, I remember doing a feature years ago where we asked people to send in their favourite roads, and you'd look at them, there's a great big list, and half of them you go, well, they're rubbish. Yeah. Those are great, but how can they have the same number of votes?
Yeah. The thing is that
20 people love this road.
Like some people, do you use Best Biking Roads? Do you ever go on that website?
As I know it's got some really good stuff, but I don't like the kind of because you don't know who and I know they get voted for and rated, but I trust, because I'm an old school journalist, I trust personal recommendation.
Absolutely, yeah.
I like to know who has said that's a good road.
The reason they came to mind was because exactly what you just said, in that I do exactly what you do in terms of Google Street View. If I find a road on there that's recommended, then I'll use Street View to zoom in and have a look at it, because some people will, like, it goes in the star rating, doesn't it? 5-star rating, this is amazing. Some people will rate a dual carriageway as 5 stars because they can max the bike out and have a great time in a straight line. And other people will, the most amazing mountain twisty pass, they'll give it like half a star because they can't corner. And so I like to, I'm the same as you.
Vertigo or whatever.
Yeah. So I'm like you. I will look and go, okay, well, let's have a look and see what this is like on Street View. And but it's a good resource for that. And I do use the Ride Mag downloadable routes as well.
Thank you very much.
No, mate, they're brilliant. I love it because you've got like 1 day routes, and then you also do like a week tour, 10 days tour, 2 week tour. If you've never checked it out, folks, I'll leave a link. If you're watching a YouTube vid, in fact, even on the podcast as well, check out in the description, and there'll be a link to take you to the ride downloadable routes. It's amazing, and obviously a link for Simon's book.
Well, never mind the book. I don't get money for that. Link for my website, which has got all the latest versions of those routes on.
You don't get any commission for your book?
No.
You're kidding me?
Flat fee.
Oh, no. Mate. No.
I got next to nothing for the first one.
Oh.
Bauer got an equal amount of next to nothing because a lot of the content was licensed from then. And it was, I think, fair play to them. They thought, well, I wonder how this will do. And they reprinted the first one 7 times. So I doubled the fee for the next one. And that's gone well. Wow. And then we've just done a second edition of the first book, which is very confusing. But basically, there are 3 versions. So the latest version of Bikers Britain was the one I did just before leaving the mag. And that's the biggest and the most comprehensive one. It's tours? Mostly day trips. No, that's the middle one.
That's the middle, right.
So that one's geared. The idea with that was to do slightly longer trips, to put more emphasis on 3-day trips to see more of one place. Yeah. The thing that always gets me with that is you always get feedback. People say, "But I live here and I know different roads. I know better roads." Well, of course you do. You bloody live there.
Exactly.
You know, I've tried to collate the greatest knowledge and put together routes so that if someone who hasn't been there before turns up for the first time, what are the roads they're going to ride and come away with the best impression of that place? And when you're doing little 1-day routes, you sometimes think, well, there were all these routes in Wales in the first one. I thought, well, how are people going to get to them?
Yeah.
Because you could take a good road or a bad road to get there. So what if we did lots of 3-day trips through Wales? That'd be much more useful.
Yeah. So. Something I'm doing with the channel now is utilising social media now. Well, I can't quite start it yet, but once the whole lockdown thing is gone and everyone's happy to socialise and meet again, we're nearly there now anyway, I think. But I'm going to be like picking a place on social media, and I'll go, right, I'm coming to, I don't know, Leeds. I'll be at Leeds this weekend. Who wants to meet up? What roads are we going to go and ride? And get people to come and meet, and we'll go and ride their recommended roads, and just start trying to cover more and more and more of the country on the channel and get people involved. And I fully intend to be using your book with those routes. And I've started using this little app called Moto. They're one of my sponsors now, believe it or not. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's amazing.
Yeah, I've used it, tested it. I have a license for it, and I use it occasionally. I won't mention the other one that I use as they're one of your sponsors, but there are 2 that I use, and that is one of the 2. What I like about it is there aren't many phone apps that let you pre-plan a route, and because of it's bizarre. I went from doing all my riding by just turning up, which is what I went back to doing my big trip, which is why I lost all track of the schedule. Because that's how you explore. I love it. I like finding people to tell me where's a good place and going and seeing what things are like based on proper advice. That's great. Yeah. But for doing the job, especially when we were doing the big trip, so when we did the first guide to Spain, well, the first guide to France was the first one we did. We had 10 days, we had a fixed budget, we had 3 people, and we had to cover as much of France as we could.
Wow.
And we basically did 10 400-mile days with photo shoots attached, which was quite difficult. I mean, to get one picture that appears in the mag, we'd normally spend 15 to 30 minutes going backwards and forwards around the corner, just trying to get the right shot.
Yeah.
Photo shoots are a pain in the arse, and we'd have to do at least 6 a day. So, on a good day, we've got 3 hours worth of photo shoots, maybe 3.5. And we're trying to pack in 400 miles as well, not on motorways because we're scouting the roads that we haven't already ridden, trying to just confirm stuff. And that was bloody hard.
I don't think you're getting much sympathy from anyone.
But if that hadn't been planned out, there's no way we'd have got round. So the whole thing it only functioned because we had strict routes. And And obviously, when you're presenting the routes to people, it's all, here's routes downloaded. So I've got into the habit of just, I've got to go anywhere. Just test put a route together and test it.
Yeah.
As much to test the sat nav as to test the technology.
Yeah.
And I found that with the Kalimoto is one of the ones that is good for letting you plan a route and upload it. And whether you use My Route app or, I use Basecamp to generate all my routes because...
You're a sadist.
No, it's easy. I love it. It's so simple to use. But I work on a Mac.
Yeah,
the
me
PC
too.
version is, I will concede, the work of the devil, but the Mac version is fine.
I always find I always used to use Basecamp, but I would spend hours meticulously planning my route on Basecamp, upload it to my sat nav, to my Garmin or my Zumo, and it would be like a totally different route, and I'm like, what's going on here? What's happening? and if you don't zoom right in, then sometimes it drops it like a pin 10 metres off the road or something. And you're like, oh.
Or the other side of the dual carriageway, so it'll go up and down.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes when you change maps, it'll move everything.
Absolutely,
It is capable of being a complete and utter shit.
I find I've started to use, sorry to interrupt, I've started to use the Kalimoto web browser version to plot my tours now, and it's so easy. Literally, it's just like, you don't even need to zoom that far in. It's just click, 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 bosh, there's the route, and it like seamlessly syncs to the app, so it's done.
Yeah.
Oh, happy days.
I haven't. When I last used it, the web composer wasn't ready.
Ah, right.
So I'll have to look into that.
They've been doing quite a lot of work on it.
That's what My Route app's really good for. It's just the main reason I use Basecamp is just the library. So I have millions of routes. And
I bet you do.
And I can pull them all up. If I want to see, it takes about 10 minutes to preview. If I click on my collection, I can go and make tea and come back before it's worked out. And it goes,
jeez.
And it's quite heavy. So everything's nicely organised, but that's my anal retention. That's fantastic. Oh, that's organised. That's there. That's in its nice little folder, and it's all easy to find. Makes it really easy for me to find stuff. And if I want to put a route together, because obviously one of the things I'm doing at the moment is planning bespoke trips for people. Yeah. So on my website you can download ready to go self-guided ones, but really the thing I enjoy doing most is talking to someone, finding out where they want to go, what kind of roads they like doing, and then stringing a route together that works for them. The best resource I've got is all of the routes I've already planned, because actually that bit's all right, but then that gets a bit natchery, but there's a version there that kind of carries on. And it's very rare that I've got one route that is just right, but I can stitch together 5 or 6 other routes to produce one whole trip that really hangs together and has the right blend of riding, the right number of hours in the saddle, stops in the right kind of places.
That's good to know. I'll send some people your way, because I get asked all the time. People message me all the time about stuff like that, and I've got to be brutally honest a lot of the time in that I'm quite selfish in my riding, in that I know what I like, and that's really it. I've never really taken other people into account, because I'm like, well, if you want to come on one of my trips, you must be like me mentally. You must like what I like.
Yeah.
And if you don't, I don't know what you would like. So you're the man I'll send people to so they can go, this is what I ride like, this is how I am, what do you recommend?
I've done so many group tours over the years with different tour operators, and they all work differently. They all have a different feel, and you get a real range. Yeah. You get some that you do get some where you think, how has this guy actually got a license? Mm-hmm. And in fact, I've done a couple of trips with Eagle Rider in America, and one of the guides is a German guy, so naturally they called him the Führer. He was ex-Hamburg cop, lovely guy, but just took no shit and had the accent. Okay, I said,
did he
get some
goose
guys
step everywhere?
No, he was. He learned to speak English watching Miami Vice.
Oh wow!
That's how cool he was.
Yeah.
He was like that, but with a leather jacket. Very cool, but obviously we'll turn it on and get strict. He was saying that their customers over there's a huge range, and sometimes you get a guy who's 65, 67. So I've had a license since I was 17. last rode a bike when he was 18.
Yeah.
And they turn up, and they'll be quite dangerous. And he will go, no, right, you, I'm putting your fucking bike in the van. You're traveling with me. Your bike's on the trailer. You're not riding today.
Wow.
We'll try again tomorrow. I said, normally they're relieved because actually they're aware that they're not in control.
Oh, okay.
And then they'll get to the hotel, they'll do a bit of coaching with them, get them going. But what they can't do is stop the whole trip because one guy's going to fall off in the first corner.
Yeah.
So they try to get them up so they finish the trip on two wheels. But if they're not ready,
it's a nightmare, that.
And it's
I've had a couple of people on coming away on my. I've always tried to market my trips around my social media, around my YouTube vids, and I've always said, "Have you watched?
So they know what it's
have you
like,
watched them? Do you know what? Do you know what you're signing up for? Have you? Yeah. I've watched it. Are you happy to ride in that manner? Yeah. And I've had a couple of people come away that just way off the mark, and it's difficult. I can't. Some people I can't. I'm not comfortable. I use the drop-off marker system, but sometimes it can be half an hour before they catch up, and you're like, I can't. I could never forgive myself just carrying on and they're lying in a ditch. You know what I mean? So we often end up waiting.
But it's tricky, isn't it? I mean, there is a degree of kind of buyer beware, though. They've got to know what they're getting into and be ready for it. And I think there is that thing where, with everything to do with bikes, you are responsible for your own personal safety.
Yeah.
But you end up, when you're organising a trip, you end up in that position where you have a duty of care.
Mm-hmm.
That's the hideous legal term, but there's that legal aspect to it, isn't it, once you're running the trip? And it's really tricky when someone goes, no, you're not. You're perfectly fine swimming in the little pool. You are now in the sea with the sharks. You might be a confident swimmer over there. Here we've got tides and things that bite.
It's a tough one. Right, shall we? I think we can get on to question 4.
I'm sorry.
Wait, don't worry about it. It's always like this. It is always like this. Right, Andy Bowen, he's known as the Motorbike Tourer. Bruce and Simon, I followed Simon's trip around the world on his Z1000SX. Out of all the places you visited, where would you go back to and what bike would you take?
Tasmania I want to go back to because I was in Tassie for 4 days. The theory was I'd do 1 day for each corner of the country, and it rained for 3.5 of them. So when it was dry, it was fabulous, but the rest of the time it was cold, sleeting, and I was quite lucky because I left just as the off-road skills guys got there for their sort of early spring trip to Tassie, and they had 2 days of snow. So I was quite lucky just to have wind and rain. But I'd like to go back there because it was an amazing place. I'd just like to enjoy that in better weather. In terms of places I'd revisit, obviously Grand Canyon and Utah. All of the kind of the rocky area, Utah, into Colorado. South Dakota was fabulous. I'd like to go there not in Sturgis, and have a couple of weeks riding around where I don't feel like I'm an alien because I'm on the only Japanese bike for 7,000 miles, but also where the roads are quieter because it's the only place I've ever been where there were more bikes than cars. I've genuinely never seen anything like it. Have you ever been to Saint-Tropez when the Harley rallies there, or the Fakazay when the rallies there, or even just around Donington when you've got a World Superbikes or Grand Prix weekend? It's nothing, absolutely nothing. You want to treble the number of the bikes to car ratio. It's astonishing. I assume Sturgis, I knew the numbers that it got, like millions of visitors and yada, yada, yada. And I thought, well, it's just one town people go into. No, it takes over Sturgis, Deadwood, Rapid City, Spiff. All the towns around are completely chock full of bikes. Wow. It's absolutely astonishing. And everyone's riding the same kind of routes. So, I wanted to do 2 roads, but I only had time to do one. I wanted to do Needles Highway and Iron Mountain Road, so I had to choose one of them. And I chose the Iron Mountain Road because it's got the 360 corners on it, and it has all these tunnels that frame Mount Rushmore. So you kind of come around a corner, and there's a hill, the little thing and you go, oh, look, there's a president down there.
Oh, wow.
Absolutely fantastic. It's really, really beautifully done.
Why didn't I know you? I rode through all that and didn't know anything about this. Oh, man.
It's that's where I want to go back, where it's quiet. And further south into the Badlands of South Dakota, because I literally kind of skipped onto the edge. I stayed the night on one of the Indian reservations. Yeah. And in my head, I live in a town called Thetford now, which is, in Norfolk it's known because it's where a lot of London overspill was moved. Right. And I thought Indian reservations, same kind of thing, round up the unwanted population, stick them somewhere out of the way, which is why Thetford's the size it is. And I assumed the reservations were a similar kind of size. I was at reception when, bear in mind, I'd ridden for 20 minutes from the border of the reservation to get to the hotel. And they said, yep, where are you? Yep, you're on the reservation. Yep. Well, we're about 6 hours from there.
Wow. Bloody hell.
It's the scale of America. Yeah. You can't get until you've been there. So there was no way I was going to just detour to the Badlands to do that bit. So I want to go back and do South Dakota in more detail. And what bike? I mean, frankly, any bike. I would probably take an adventure bike, just because the flexibility of it. I loved riding the sports tourer. I love the SX. I've still got it, and it really suits the way that I ride. But there are points where you go with that. I was quite keen on doing the Valley of the Gods, which is near Monument Valley. And everyone says it's more impressive, more spectacular. And I rolled up to the turn up for it, and it wasn't long. It was maybe a 40-metre slope, but like 45 degrees gravel, with gravel at the bottom. I thought, I'm not doing this on a sports tourer with shed loads of luggage on it. It's just not set up. And on an adventure bike, I'd have been down there without any issue. So I would take an adventure bike, not to do a lot of off-roading, but there are roads like the Moki Dug Way, which I didn't get to do because, again, unpaved. Valley of the Gods, see those things. So I'd take an adventure bike for those.
I think especially these days with the modern adventure. Sorry to go on about it again, folks, but not just the GS, but the KTMs, even the Ducati, the Multistrada. You can even do that now. They open the world up to you, because if you are going down this amazing, beautiful tarmac road, and then all of a sudden you fancy doing that little dirt trail, you can. If you can ride off road, you can take them off road, can't you? And I'll take the GS to the racetrack. Yeah. You can take these things on track if you want. They literally do just about everything. So,
yeah. I mean, they are the most flexible things. Now they've got the road performance to back it up. I mean, I probably could have got the SX down that gravelly slope. But when you're passing one car every 25 minutes when it's busy.
If something happens.
If I do fuck it up, what am I going to do if I make a mistake? How am I going to pick it up? How am I going to get it repaired? And because you are essentially travelling without a safety net when you're doing a lot of this stuff, you change your attitude to risk changes a lot. Stuff that I'll do that. When you know that the worst happens, it's a mate with a transit and you're home 4 hours later. When it's a very expensive bill and you're home 4 days later, then you kind of wind your neck in quite a lot.
See, I found when I was on my trip, I very much adopted the attitude of, I will, if I drop it, I drop it. That's just the way it is. And I did more off-roading on my world trip than I do now. I don't take my GS off-road because it's a blooming 18 grand bike and I don't want to drop it. Whereas the Gixxer, sometimes you had to. Sometimes I just had to ride off-road. So
no choice. Yeah.
But I mean, I would paddle my way off-road. I wasn't Dakar rallying it over dunes and stuff,
I suppose that's the difference, isn't it? You can get it down, but you're getting it down.
Yeah, it's not pretty.
You can get across, but you're not really riding it. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's I don't like that sense of nursemaid. And part of it is that kind of, you're back to being a learner again, aren't you? When you're riding a bike so far out of its environment, you don't feel like you're in proper control.
I am editing a video at the moment of my first proper off-road experience, which was last December down at Toro Trail in Spain, and I was on Husky 350s. Perfect. It's an off-road tour school type place, and I've got fantastic tuition from the lads down there, and I hated it. I absolutely hated it because I was so far out my comfort zone. I didn't know what I was doing, and I'm editing the vid now, and it's just like, this is going to be horrendous because I'm plainly not having a good time. But I know by the end of it, I was starting to enjoy it. And then the next day, I took the GS and I did off-roading on the GS, and I loved it because I felt the 350 was, I had more confidence, and the 350 was just it felt too small. I couldn't balance standing up on it, whereas on the GS just felt substantial, and I felt, I'm not falling over the front and I'm not falling off the back. I could balance better on it.
You'll just have to pick up the name when I drop it, but I got taught to ride off-road by Ross Noble.
Oh, did you? Yeah.
Well, when I had a KTM Super Adventure, and he had one as well. And so KTM said, and I said, well, I'm not really good off-road, but I want to go to the Alps and ride some of the off-road trails there, but I need to prep. You don't have an off-road school. And they said, no, but could you do a feature? We hooked up with Ross. So I went down for an afternoon, and in his back garden, which is, sort of wooden paddock and horsey thing, he's got some little kind of obstacles set up for practicing his trials riding, because he's a big trials rider. And so he just got me doing basically riding over logs and things, and then riding through a wood and through fields with that on 1290s. Wow. And he's just, he's an astonishingly talented rider. He's very, very good. And I got to the point where, I rode across the field, and then, I got there, and Ross said, right, what we're going to do now is we'll start with something. And Weeble, the photographer, said, that's about the most off-roading he's done in the last 20 years. That's as good as he's going to get. And I did improve. Fair play. He got me up to that good standard. But at the end of the day, he said, well, have a go on I can't remember what size it was, a little 250 EXC or something. And it felt like I was holding a broomstick and standing on two pegs, and there was no bike there.
Exactly.
So small.
Yeah, that's what I felt like.
I just blew my mind. It felt like I was on magic carpet. I did 2 laps and got off it. I can keep that. I don't want anything to do with that. That's too small. It's going to bite me.
I'm just watching. It's funny you mention Ross, because I was downstairs and something came on one of the channels, and it was Ross doing that. They call it the toughest enduro race.
Oh, the 6-day trial.
Yeah, up in Scotland. Yeah. That one, he was doing that, and I know from watching his shows that he's a bloody good off-roader, and he was struggling. He was massively struggling on this. You're like, bloody hell.
Oh, it's inconceivable. I mean, that's a proper challenge.
Yeah. I'd never heard of it before.
Oh, really?
Never heard of that.
It's a really well-established thing. Yeah, it's got years. It's properly hardcore. I mean, I'm not sure. I don't think I'd ever. You could train me for 10 years, I'd never be up for it.
Well, they were like going up sheer waterfalls and stuff, like taking these enduro bikes up. Yeah. Like, what?
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about what are sort of best moments, high moments. That's one of them. Having had that kind of coaching from Ross, 2 or 3 weeks later, I went to ride some of the unpaved roads in the Italian Alps. Yeah. And I took a photographer with me who was a guy called Gareth Harford, great photographer, works on the GP circuit, and he had to get to Misano, and so he wanted to ride out. So I said, well, we'll set off, we'll go down. On the way, I'll pay you for the 2 days that we do the shoot, and I'll pay for the hotels, but you have to cover your own petrol. I can't pay you for the 2 days we travel. So that's fair enough, that's good. And we got up to the top of this pass, and it was glorious sunshine. We're on the top of this mountain, and there is nothing there. It's just peaceful. And we're looking at each other. It's amazing. And then suddenly this yip, and some guy with a little stroke came up, roosted us, and just down the hill. Bastard. It's taken us 20 minutes to get up here. He's done that in about 2 minutes flat.
I remember seeing on my trip. I remember seeing stuff like that. Like, I have literally blood, sweat, and toil to get my Gixxer down this beaten off-roady track, and then all of a sudden you hear this noise, and there's like a C90 moped coming by with the mum, dad, and 6 kids all on it, and they're just careering up this path, and you're like, what?
Have you got any questions we can do with a yes or no answer? Do some rapid fire.
I don't think there's any yes and no answers here. They're all quite big questions, but we will speed it up because I think we're about 5 questions in now. Right. And I know I did have I've got to admit, I had a sneaky peek at some of the Instagram ones, and there's some good questions, things that I wanted to chat with you about anyway. So we'll try and get to them. Right, Andy Bowen, motorbike tourer. Oh no, that's the one we just asked. Next one, Yorkshire Biker 93. Question for both. After doing many miles around the globe, if you were to offer one piece of advice to an aspiring new adventure rider, what would it be? Mine would be...
Don't worry.
Yeah, exactly that. Go for it. Do it.
Yeah.
It's it, isn't it?
It's all just riding a bike, you know. If you can ride a bike to Sainsbury's, you can ride a bike to Sydney.
Absolutely. It is riding a bike. That's all it is, isn't it? There's a little bit more involved at times, but essentially that's all it is.
Yeah, it's more paperwork, but beyond that, better views makes up for it. So
it's so easy to say once you've done it, though, isn't it? And I know how ridiculous it sounds when you're full of trepidation about doing something like this, but literally just go, just head off and do it.
Yeah. Biking is full of those scary first moments, though. You know, the first time you take a pillion, you're terrified. The first time you ride a new bike, you're anxious. The first time you do a long trip to Scotland, if you've never done that. First time you go go to Europe. All of those things are kind of, and then you go, oh, what was the fuss about? It was straightforward. First time you do a track day is one of the classic ones. Everyone's petrified. You get there, sit through the briefing, and they wind you up and make you even more scared. 20 minutes later after the first session, you go, well, that was just great.
I still get nervous track days. I still get nervous with track. I've done loads of them, but I'm still nervous turning up. Yeah.
I think a little bit of apprehensive caution is good, because I think the character of it changes, doesn't it? You become worried about, I'm not going to get carried away. Whereas I think beforehand, you turn up thinking, I'm going to get mugged by guys on race bikes. I'm going to be made to look stupid. You have all these different kind of fears. When you get into it, it's just kind of, I want to do this well. I just
don't want to spank it.
I want to not make any mistakes.
I just don't want to cartwheel my bike down the road. That's all I'm ever worried about now.
Done that. It's fine.
Me and all.
Just expensive. It's just paperwork. but with anyone thinking about doing any kind of big trip, I think that the proper advice is probably plan your finances, isn't it? Make sure that you're not going to run out of money, and then just do it.
Absolutely.
As long as you've got enough saved up, there's nothing holding you back.
Absolutely. Yeah. Right, Matt Rowe Designs. That was a quick one. We did one. We've done one.
Yes.
Matt Rowe Designs. I've ridden nearly all your rides in the East Anglian section of Bikers Britain with a mate who has the book, and the roads are amazing. How do you go about finding the best roads? Is it research, talking to local bikers, or looking at maps? We kind of touched on that, didn't we?
Yeah. We have, I mean, obviously East Anglia, it's where I live now, it's where I grew up, it's where I learned to ride. But research for me is getting on the bike and riding it, but always backed up by asking people. I always get advice. I will confirm things with maps, and sometimes I'll do pointed research. Sometimes you don't go, where's a good road? Sometimes you find, have you ridden this road? Is it any good? That's, to be honest, that's the majority of the way that I do stuff now. I will go back to people who I know an area and say, look, I'm thinking of doing this. But when I was putting the Ride Guide to France together initially, I sent a route to a friend of mine who lives not too far outside Paris, and said, look, I'm trying to put this route together, and the first one we just put one route in each area. And I said, which one of these two do I do? He said, I don't know, I'll tell you on Monday. And he went out on the Saturday road one, went out on the Sunday road the other one. He came back and said, well, actually, what you want to do is put the two together. And that's the one that we published.
Fantastic.
Was the one that was kind of where he linked my two routes together, where they kind of overlapped, said that's the best bits of both routes. And so now what I tend to do is, if I'm in doubt, I'll try and find someone who knows an area. There's a friend of mine called Tony who used to run a B&B in the middle of France called Riders Rest, which is still going as a B&B, sold it as a going business. Great place, great destination. And Tony's really good at putting routes together. And he helped me with a load of French routes, and then he retired, moved to southern Spain.
Happy days.
So we started doing the second version of Guide to Spain. So Tony, now you're down there, which of these routes? He said, Tony, just meet me at this cafe at 9 o'clock. I'll show you.
Happy days.
that's the best way.
It kind of makes you want.
Always. Yeah, but it's you can use forums as well, but best biking roads if you're really stuck. But it is there is no substitute for personal experience, and it can't be your personal experience, the experience for someone that you trust.
Absolutely.
And then after that, if you have to rely on strangers' recommendations, you're guessing a bit. So I always try and go for recommendations of people that I know how they ride, what kind of roads they like, because then if I can gauge their recommendation. There are some guys I won't ask about narrow, naturally roads because I know they don't like them. Some of the roads that I like, Weeble absolutely hates. So I say, is that a good road? No, it's terrible. Absolutely
excellent.
terrible.
That's the one for me.
Bloody brilliant road. Yeah. But it is just research, and then generally go and test them. Certainly with the First Bikers Britain one, there's a whole bunch there are 4 routes in the Peak District, and I always crisscrossed the Peak District and never spent any time there. So I went and spent a day and a half just riding every single road that I could, and then linking them up after that. Thinking I kind of rough routes. I think 2 of them survived pretty much as I'd planned, and 2 of them were quite different because of the other roads that I rode. But the thing is, though, if you ask people who ride around the Peak District, can you tell me 3 different roads? By the time you've asked 10 people, you've got every bloody road in the district's been recommended.
Yeah,
so
I've noticed that.
Sometimes you have to filter it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, when you put that out there, can you recommend a road around here? Then you end up with so many, don't you?
You have to filter.
Definitely. Next one, Tony Rolls. This is a good one. I've just caught this one. If 2020 was a bike, what would it be? Well,
Cat D.
Like it. Well, that's genius. Yeah, I love that. Cat D, definitely.
No, I mean, if it was a bike, I don't think it'd be a bike. I think it'd be a scooter.
Not a fan.
No, I don't fit on scooters. They're too big. I'm too big for them. I try and move the bars. I hit my knees.
Do you know Sticky? Martin. Oh, what's Martin's second name? He's known as Sticky. He's massive in the scooter scene. Huge. He's like the scooter god in the UK, basically. Yeah. But he Frankensteined a scooter. He's put like a 400cc engine in one, and like an old style 60s scooter. He's ridden them all over Europe. He's a lovely. He's a big lump. He's like 6'7".
Good grief.
Big tall guy.
Yeah, no, I like big wheels.
Right.
I don't know what it would be. It wouldn't be a good bike.
I like Cat D. You don't know what a Cat D's like a write-off. Insurance write-off. That's a brilliant answer.
Yeah.
Jack Porter, you may have to come back to this question, but what's the funniest thing to happen to either of you on a ride tour? We covered that earlier, didn't we? We did best moment.
Yeah.
Or can you think of any particular funny thing?
Never laughing. It's always very serious.
It's working after all. Working.
I think the most stupid thing I've ever done. I went through a period of not trusting waterproof stuff, so I ride with a Krieger bum bag because I knew that the middle pocket was properly waterproof, so I could roll everything up, and in there I'd have my wallet, my phone, my passport. And get to coffee stops, and obviously you sit in a chair, it's a bit uncomfortable, it's taken off, hanging on the back, get up and go. And I was on an organised tour, and again, every day I try and ride with a different couple of people. These trips, they break down, you have these 2 guys ride together, these 2 guys ride together. So I'd try and ride, tag along with a different set each day. Joined these 2 guys. We got to the first coffee stop on Col de Gros Saint-Bernard and Swiss-Italian border. We stopped for a coffee, that's great. One of them paid, that's very nice of them. Rode over the border into Italy, through Italy, over the border again into France, stopped at my favourite coffee shop. The next guy bought coffees, very nice, how kind of him.
See where this is going.
And then we set off, got to the top of Petit Saint-Bernard. I thought, I'll just get a picture. Oh shit, where's my bum bag with my phone and my wallet and my passport? I must have left it down at the coffee shop we just stopped at. No.
Oh.
I think, I know why this is. But some of the other guys on the tour had turned up, so we phoned my phone number, no answer. And then my phone rang, or this guy's phone rang, and it was my phone number. I said, yeah, we have it. And yeah, it's the coffee shop back in Switzerland.
Bloody hell.
So I've got to ride another 35 miles or so back there through an Italian police speed trap that I'd seen, thinking I'm desperate to go there and get it back, because this is like an 80-mile detour I'm sticking into the day. Go and get this back. But I can't speed because I can't pay the spot fine because my wallet's in Switzerland. And if they want any documents, they're in Switzerland. Oh! So I had to get that over the border. So I had a coffee and gave them a 30 franc tip, and then set off to catch up with the group, who are now, like 80 miles further ahead of me. Yeah, that was quite stupid. I'm not sure that's funny, but it was.
One that springs to mind with me was that we did a lad's trip to the Picos about 3 years ago now, 2 or 3 years ago, and it happened to be one of the lad's last ever trips because he's now emigrated to Australia, funnily enough. So, and he was getting married as well. So we treated it as a bit of an ad hoc stag do for him. So we stopped in, oh God, where were we? Oh God, I've forgotten the name of the place. Right up in northern, it is west along the coast from Santander in northern Spain. I've forgotten the name of it.
Oviedo? Or?
No, it's just north of that on the coast.
Gijón?
Gijón, that's it. We're in Gijón. So do you know
Gijón,
yeah, exactly, Gijón, yeah. And they've got the massive beach there, and then there's the sort of the peninsula bit. It was quite nice, and that's the place to go drinking. Well, we're walking along the beach, and what we did, because it was a stag do, is we nicked one of the bed sheets out of the hotel and cut a couple of eyes in it. So he's now dressed as a ghost, and we'd all brought Hawaiian shirts with us. So we're all in Hawaiian shirts. He's dressed up as a ghost. We've had a few sherberts by this point anyway, so the lads decide we're going to do a sprint race down the beach, because they're like a lot of ex-military there, and old Bill, and beers are flowing and testosterone's flying. And then me and this other chap, he's an ex-bootnock, ex-marine, we decide we're going to leave a little symbol on the beach. So in the old Bill, you cock everything. Like if you leave an evidence book lying around, someone draws a cock in it. If you leave a hat, someone draws a cock in it. It's just, you cock anything left around. So we decide we're going to draw a cock on the beach, but this is like a 200-foot long cock. So Martin and I start like a bollock each at either end, and we start sort of drawing in the sand with our feet, and this crowd starts gathering on the promenade, up there. They're all looking down on the beach, and they're all like, oh, what's this going to be, So we complete the balls, and then we start heading up the shaft, and by that point some people on the promenade have cottoned on to what this is going to be.
They're taking the children away.
Well, my mate was saying there was this like elderly couple there in their 70s, man and woman, and they're sat there, they're sort of leant on the railing watching, and she's all like smiling away, oh, what's this? And obviously the old boy's cottoned on to what it is, and my mates were saying he started laughing, and she's like, what are you laughing at? And then obviously once we've got to the bell section, it dawned on her what it was, and she said her face, she just went like from being this, oh, I wonder what they're drawing on the beach, to, you dirty bastards, drags him kicking and screaming up the street. But, yeah, don't know if that's funny, but it certainly made us chuckle at the time. Right, where were we with that one? That was Jack Porter, wasn't it?
Yes.
Oh, he's got another question there. After all the miles you've ridden, what is the one piece of kit or tool that you would take that you wouldn't leave home without?
I always take a thing called an EDZ inner shell.
Right.
Just because it folds up to a tiny little size, and it's just basically a pull-out shirt. So the temperature drops. Just throw that on. And it adds a little bit of warmth. Not a huge amount of warmth. It's not thermal. It's like parachute silk, but it just traps another layer of air. And especially if you've got anything that's perforated or meshed, it's a windstop. So when the temperature goes down, they're just absolutely brilliant.
Oh,
really
never heard of
things.
that. Right. I was just going to say my phone. I've been asked that question before, and it's like, well, have my phone because I can pay on that now. I can use it as a sat nav, and if the worst happens, you can call somebody, can't you? Simple as that.
Yeah.
Mark Mundy, with the average age of bikers increasing year on year, and more seemingly dropping off the top than coming in at the bottom, no doubt due to the discouragement from the powers that be, how do you see the future of biking? Interesting. We touched on that at the start.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's, as it becomes a minority sport, a minority hobby, it becomes easier for to be kept out of city centres.
Yeah.
It means that tax rates might get jumped up, and there's not be enough people to protest about it. There won't be a powerful enough lobby to say, but hang on, this is how people get to work in low-paid jobs, which is traditionally they're on bikes, not really what bikes are now. But I don't think it's going to disappear any more than deer stalking and pheasant shooting disappeared. I think, but it might become that much of a strange little exclusive pursuit for.
Do you think?
And others, I think so, because it, especially. Well, it depends. I think sadly, a lot of it depends on electric bikes, because obviously what we do, electric bikes aren't practical. I'd still be somewhere in Nevada plugging things in if I was using electric bikes. The range is just nowhere near.
It's getting better, but it's still
for big trips.
Yeah, it's still not there.
Yeah, but it's So as long as we're burning petrol, I think that's probably going to be as much of an issue for us as anything else. As clean as bikes are, well, we've seen the way that they're gradually being phased out of city centres. That message doesn't seem to sink in. So as long as we're using petrol, we're going to be gradually facing the restrictions. And I think that's probably going to have more of an impact than throughput of riders, sadly. But I try not to think too hard about it. I try to enjoy it while I can.
I'm not as pessimistic, to be honest, because I certainly see on Instagram in particular, there certainly seems to be a much younger crowd coming in now than certainly I was aware of. I mean, I haven't been riding that. I've only been riding 12 years now. But definitely in the last, I would say, 3 or 4 years on the social platforms, there's a lot more women and there's a lot more of a younger crowd coming through. You're sort of, I would say, early 20s to late 20s. There's much more of that crowd now, certainly being visible on bikes, which is good to see, definitely. But surprisingly, not that many small bikes. I was expecting, because they tried to push small bikes a lot, didn't they? A couple of years ago, there was a lot of the big four started doing much smaller CC, but people don't seem to be picking them up that readily. Everyone seems to be going to 600s and 1000s.
Yeah, I think the trouble is that even if you don't use all of it, big power is nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it makes a lot of things easier than does the gearbox, chasing a lot of power. And also because small bikes have small capacities, they have to have small price tags, which means they're built to a lesser standard than, if you're going to pay 12 grand for a nice brand new big capacity bike, it's built to a certain level. If you're going to spend 3.5 grand on a tiddler, it's built down to that price. And I think that there's no incentive to keep it, maintain it, and make it a thing, to make it a kind of something to aspire to. Whereas I think when you've got a bigger, more expensive bike, it's something you live with. It's something you cherish. It becomes much more than just it's a motorcycle. It's a lovely thing in its own right. And so that you end up with a culture that just kind of focuses on those nice things because it's leisure. why wouldn't you do the leisure on a nice
Oh,
thing?
yeah, granted. It's interesting, though, because I'd never done the small bike thing. I did a 125 for my CBT, which was, at the time, a couple of hours round the car park and then, out on the road. That's it, right, move on to your
So you did direct access?
I did direct access, yeah, literally straight on to C1, D1.
Right.
And I'd never ridden a 125 since. And then Sinnes approached and said, we've got an adventure bike, how do you feel about taking this adventure bike? And I was like, oh yeah, cool. I put my hand up, I didn't know who Sinnes were, so I just went, yeah, okay, I'll take it. What, tell me more about the bike. 125cc. And I was like, what? I tell you what, I had a whale of a time. I had it 2 weeks and I had a real giggle. Genuinely had a great time. Wringing its neck, and at times I was doing about 38 to 40 miles an hour. Just going uphill and twisty roads. And then if you get out in the dual carriageway, I think I might have hit 60, 62, on this thing. But then I'm 20 stone, and this bike put a massive smile on my face. So yeah. I see it now. But I wouldn't just have a 125. I couldn't just have the 125.
No, that's the trouble.
But it was a lot of fun. Yeah. Definitely a lot of fun.
Yeah. Caning small bikes is fun, but it's
limiting. I wouldn't fancy doing some of the Picos of the Pyrenees. Certainly not riding down there on one of them. Yeah. John Broadhurst. John's a good one. John works on the bin lorries, and he's always listening to these. So John and all the crew in the bin wagons, keep doing what you're doing, and I hope you're enjoying this one. Question to both of us. You're riding down a country lane, all is peaceful and bliss. You see a huge pile of horse shit in the road. Do you A, avoid it because we're mature people, or B, ride through it to see how big a splat it makes?
Depends who's washing the bike afterwards.
Exactly. Yeah. Absolutely.
if it's a press bike you're giving back, why bother? I mean, actually, it must be said, I once I did a trip to the Alps, and it was one of the ones. I borrowed a bike from Ducati, rode up into the Alps. My mate Martin rode down from Lincolnshire on his SV1000 to meet me, and we set off, and we weren't getting a story out of it. It was a magazine thing, but at one point we swapped bikes. We set off the road there, and the road was covered in cow shit, absolutely everywhere. And it wasn't a case of rode through it; I just couldn't avoid it. It was everywhere. Came to this corner, this cow pair road just went. I thought, oh God, I'm not going to crash Martin's bike in a big pot of poo. No. It was just. If it's in a straight line, you can go through it, but not when you're turning
not on the banes.
It's not good.
No. I find that in the Picos, towards the end of the evening, certainly from like 4:30, 5 o'clock, there's always shit on the road, isn't there? And because it's weird. The animals know that's the time they come off the mountains and they start working their way into the villages and to the farms and stuff. So we have a saying: where there's poo, there's moo. So it's just like when you see shit in the road, look for what's leaving it. Right, Vernon Whitney. Really loving the podcast, Bruce. Cheers, Vernon. The celebs are queuing up. Big fan of Simon and his books.
I've never been that before.
My question: after your world tour, are you thinking of going back to? Oh, I think we've covered this. Are you going back to any of the places to spend more time there, and if so, where and why? Question for both of us. Again, we kind of touched on that, haven't we?
Yeah, we have. I mean, there are places I'd go back to see. To one level, I'm more interested to go back and see the places I've missed. Yeah. I did 24 of the continental US states. I'd like to go back and tick off the rest of them. Obviously, I had to kind of skip Latin America because I was running out of money. That feels like unfinished business. I'd like to go and do that. Tassie, I'd want to go back to. But at the moment, one of the things that brought me back to Europe from Australia was that I was missing riding in Europe. I was missing the Alps. I was missing particularly the Alps, but also riding in Spain, riding in Portugal. Just that whole kind of thing. And when you come out of the Ligurian hills and it's all sort of hot and dense and shady, and you come out and you get blasted by sun and you've just got this amazing blue sea, and you stop at a cafe and get an ice cream and a glass of espresso. kind of missed that because you don't get any of that in Australia. I promise you.
Yeah. I found it gave me a newfound appreciation, and I'll not get political, but it gave me a newfound appreciation for how easy we have it in the UK, that we can jump on a ferry or jump on the train, like the Eurotunnel, 25 minutes, bang, you're in front, and then you literally have Europe to play in. You just head off on a bike, and it's probably the best riding in the world. Is literally on our fingertips, isn't it? It's there. You can get it's there. Just go for it. Aim for the horizon and keep going, and just have the time of your life. And it's definitely made me appreciate what is here.
Yeah. Would you go back to any other bits, or would you be taking off the bits you missed?
There's so much I missed. I mean, I did. Mine was a big trip, but I think there's 200 odd countries in the world, and I did 54 of them, I think. So there's a lot I've missed out there. And again, there was places like South America. I landed in Santiago and I headed north, and I just did the Pan American, because by that stage of my trip, money's tight, and I wanted familiarity. You know, I wanted to get to the States because I know the States. I wanted to get there. So I really rushed. I pinned it all through South America, Central America, and I look back and I think, dickhead, because, you know, it's things like, you know, I went careering by Machu Picchu, I went careering by Chichen Itza, all these places, and I just thought to myself, I could take a couple of days off and go there, but it's going to cost money, and it's a couple of days when I can get to the States. I can come back and go there. I can fly there with a wife. Idiot. Absolute idiot. Do you know what I mean? You're never ever going to be in that position where you're riding your bike that you've ridden all the way from home to there. I'll never be in that position again. So I would love to get that opportunity to do it. Dead Horse, didn't get to Dead Horse. Ushuaia, didn't get there. Africa's still a big thing for me because I felt I gave up down West Africa. I'd love to go back and do it, finish all that. India, yes, loads. Mongolia, I snapped the frame on the jigsaw crossing Russia. Well, I snapped it 4 times, but I snapped it again just before I was going into Mongolia. So I decided not to do Mongolia because, you know, there was only one road in the country at that time anyway. And I thought, taking a jigsaw with a broken back into Mongolia, out of Mongolia, was probably not the best call. And Mongolia was like my driving thing. Since I saw Long Way Round, I was like, I want to go to Mongolia. So that had always been the thing I wanted to do on my trip, which I've still never done. So I'd love to go back and do that. Yeah, there's lots I still want to do. So fingers crossed I can make it happen, and I'll get back and tick them off as I go. Yeah. Right, here we go. Pete English now. Pete has become a bit of a regular on these podcasts. He comes out with some pretty intriguing questions to both of you. If you could change 3 things about our country's road laws, what would you change? And is it a hot dog sandwich? What's that about? A hot dog sandwich? Is that an in-joke? I don't get that one, Pete. We've missed it.
No, I don't.
Right.
No. I mean, undertaking should be legal, but also middle lane hogging should be punishable by flogging.
Absolutely.
So that's 2 changes.
100%.
But I do think that you should be allowed to go up the inside of cars that are lane hogging. I don't think that should be just straight out. I mean, I actually found in America, you know, the turn on the red light. It just makes so much sense. I mean, there is a kind of, I can understand the insurance ramifications, because if you don't look and you get clobbered when you do, but you know, don't get clobbered.
But if it works in a country like America where they sue for pronouncing your name wrong, then if it works over there, then I'm sure we can make it work over here, surely.
Yeah, exactly. And a third one, well, I mean, for me, it would just be that city centre thing. You know, I think all bikes should be able to use bus lanes, and you know, shouldn't be excluded from things. I mean, for me, it's bus lanes is the big city improvement. Give bikes access to cities and let them use the bus lanes.
Yeah.
The road that, if I go into the office in Norwich, nice 2-lane road, but one lane is a bus lane, which a bike can't use in Norwich, so you've got to filter past the traffic, and because it's 3 lanes crammed into what was a 2-lane road, it's a bit tight sometimes. And that's not safe, whereas stick me in the bus lane, nice.
Absolutely.
And safe.
In London, the glorious, we will get political here, the glorious Mr. Khan, Sadiq Khan, our glorious mayor, he's destroyed London for traffic. What you said there, like what used to be a 2 or 3 lane big road where traffic, there was traffic jams, but it would flow. You might not be going quick, but at least you were moving. Now it's like 2 lanes, one of which is a bus lane, but the lane's not wide enough for a bus, so the bus straddles 2 lanes. The main lane for the car is now 3/4 of the width it used to be, and then you've got a solid sort of raised area in the centre of the road, so a bike can't filter down it. And then between the bus lane and the pavement is another sort of curb area, and then the separate cycle lane, which is the width of a proper car lane. And you're like, it's just,
with how many cyclists?
No, they're all in the blooming road with us. It really winds me up. Thanks, Mr. Khan.
I remember when you used to get the traffic like GP when I was dispatching, and you'd roll up anywhere on Euston Road, and it'd be 4 lanes and 4 lanes of cars with 8 bikes in front of them and traffic lights, and go, everyone's up.
And then you get those little box things for the cyclists at the front, and all the cyclists push their way to the front and fill up the entire width of the road, and then by the time the lights go to green, by the time you can move in the car, it goes to red again, doesn't it? The phasing's like that. Like the wave of cyclists move, and then that's it. That's all it gets through. Hate it.
So what we're saying is really we need to get rid of cyclists.
Absolutely, 100%.
I'm not getting involved with that argument. Just let us use the bus lanes.
Exactly, yeah. There's the other thing in London is that in almost all the boroughs of London, motorbikes can use bus lanes, I think, except 2 boroughs. Lambeth's one of them, because I've been done 3 times now in the bus lanes. So literally, you'll be like in Southwark, and you can ride the bus lane, and then all of a sudden it moves into Lambeth. You can't see any signs because there's buses everywhere, and all of a sudden you get a ticket because you're riding in a bus lane. You're like, oh, thanks. And it's like a 100-yard section of it. Anyway, I give cyclists a lot of grief in my vids, and it is tongue-in-cheek because I've said it before. I do have this thing in my head where for some reason, I fancy cycling around the UK. I'm not a cyclist, as you can probably tell, but I don't know why. There's just something niggling away at me that's like, just get on. I've got a push bike. Just get on it and cycle around the UK. Just take a couple of months and do it. So it might happen. It may well happen. Right, is that the 3 things then? So make everybody do.
I think so.
Make everyone do a 1-2-5 for a year. Riding the bus lanes, and what was the other one? Undertaking.
That is still undertaking.
Yeah, undertaking middle lane hogging. And I think that in our country, turn left on the red traffic light is a brilliant idea. Brilliant idea. Yeah. Right. Pete, that was quite sensible for you. I'm slightly disappointed. Normally it's a little bit more obscure than that. Must try harder. Andy HTTR. Question for Simon. Have you considered putting the routes from Bikers Britain the tours into a downloadable format that could be imported into a sat-nav?
All on my website.
Yes. Well, there you go. Head to, it's just simonweir.co.uk, isn't it? Is that right?
That's right, yeah. I mean, they're not exactly the same because by the nature of copyright, they have to be ever so slightly different. But essentially, all the routes you need should be there. And if there aren't, just drop me an email and they'll be added gradually.
Beautiful.
But certainly all of the ones from the second edition of the first book, so the biggest repository of routes, they're all there. There's a whole bunch of other routes. There's European routes. There's a small number in Ireland, but I don't know Ireland as well. But, I certainly England, Scotland, Wales, there are loads and loads of routes all there in downloadable form.
Nice. Well, there you go. Again, in the description of the YouTube vid and in the podcast description, I'll leave a link there for Simon's website. So head there and get your roots.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Ireland. I am going either this year or next, but I'm definitely going. I've been saying for years I was going to go. So I'm going to go and do some exploring. Come along. We'll smash out the island.
I've done it a couple of times now, and there are some lovely bits. There are some largely flat
Right.
bits with some quite rough roads. And the best bit of advice I had was before I went, one friend said, take a puncture repair kit.
Right.
I said, no. He said, no, everyone gets a puncture. I've got a
Did you?
puncture. Thankfully, because I didn't trust the weather, I planned a spare day, and it pissed it down, absolutely lashed it down. That was the day I got the puncture. And so I was able to go and get that changed, and the next day it was like a different country. It was from sort of, proper blinding, can't see the mountains rain to Mediterranean sunshine glory in just overnight. So have I slept for one night or 30? It's just...
Would you recommend it, though?
Lovely place, though. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first trip we didn't do that much. We just did the bottom three peninsulas and a bit across the middle. I've subsequently gone back and done a bit more up the west coast. I've done Northern Ireland before, but the west coast is fabulous. But again, as to the west coast of Scotland, it's pick your time to dodge the tourists. But yeah, some absolutely spectacular scenery. They are. It is that cliche though. They are they're really good at the hospitality because everyone is very friendly. They're happy to talk to you. They won't listen to a word you say because they're busy telling you their story. But drink will flow. It's a fabulous
Take your
place.
paracetamol. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Simon, that is 2 hours 15. Are you okay for time?
Yeah, I'm fine. I had a snack before I ate. I have beer.
Happy days, right? Job done then. Excellent. We'll keep going.
It's going to give you a nightmare to see this
No,
down.
that's no problem. No worries with that. I mean, we still. Oh my God. I don't think we've hit halfway with Patreon questions yet. We normally at least get through Patreon, but there have been a lot. There's been a lot of questions on this. Right, Damien McAfee. Question for us both. You can pick any bike, old or new, and any road in Europe to ride it on all day. What would it be and where would you go? Ooh.
I would probably pick the N500 in Spain, which is one of those lovely ones that goes north to south, goes over Puerto del Pico, all the way down to Cordoba.
Okay.
And it's, where does it start? Starts outside of Weir in the north. So if I don't know if you can see Spain on the map, but it basically goes from here all the way down to here. So one road, one day, that's a fantastic road. There's another one on the other side, the N300, which is another good, really useful traversing road. Any bike, I mean, that's one I probably would, the SX would be great on there because you've got a mix of long flat bits, flowing, sweeping bits, and really nice, tight, mountainy kind of stuff. But you could take any bike. I mean, for me, I'm never really fussed about the bike. I do like big adventure bikes. I love the GSA because it's a bike built on my scale, and also you don't have to keep stopping to fill the damn thing up. That's a big plus. So yeah, I mean, for me, I can't do sports bikes anymore. I find them too uncomfortable now. I'm not flexible enough. I'm an old fart. So Sports Tour is as small as I can get. So SX is probably the minimum. H2 SX would be an absolute, that would be hysterical. That would be the thing to do.
Yeah, that turbocharged engine is just nuts, isn't it? Lamb Chops is. Do you know Lamb Chops? John,
no,
he's got one. In fact, he's got the H2 SX on a loan just now. So he's just done a comparison between that and the new Super Duke R, yeah. But he's got the H2, the actual proper H2. He's got one of them, and mental. Right, I know the road, but I can't remember the road name. So I'm just gonna have a quick look on Google Maps. Bear with me. The bike definitely would be the new Gen 3 KTM Super Duke R. That bike is phenomenal. So that would be my bike for me. Let's have a look.
I mean, if I could do more than one road, but call it one road, I'd probably do the Route de Grand Alp.
Route de Grand Alp.
All the way, Thonon-les-Bains, all the way to the Med.
Okay, right, yeah.
Which is, it's a whole load of different roads, but it's one kind of tourist route. That's,
Right, for me, here's the road. It is called the LE473, and it is right. It is roughly LE473. I'm sure that's the road name. It's on all my Picos videos anyway, and it is day 4. I think it's the day when I go from Navia down to Leon, and it's the last part of that day. There's this road. I'm sure it's the LE, whatever that one is. It's phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
It is phenomenal. It's almost like it's what you'd imagine a test road would be if the Spanish or the Italians designed and built a test road for motorbikes. That's what it's like. It's out in the mountains, so there's nobody there. The road surface is generally pretty damn good, and it's just one of those roads where you can be flat out in the flowing straights and sweeping curves, and the next minute it's a hairpin, and there's just everything thrown in on this road. Normally, when there's a wee lay-by that we pull in before you get to the main road, you sort of get to a T-junction and then head south to Leon. Before that, there's a wee lay-by section where I normally stop just to everyone get their heads back to, take a breath. The amount of people that get off the bike and kiss the road, it is phenomenal. Probably the best riding road I think I've ever ridden. It's phenomenal. Love it. So that is mine. Right. That was Damien, wasn't it? Damien McAfee.
Yeah.
Right. The Bingley Wheeler, Dave. These are proving required watching and listening. Bruce, thank you very much. Cheers. A mainstream chat show must surely follow. I don't think I've got a face for TV. Where are we? My question to you both is, doesn't every bike have an IMU, something that knows what the bike's doing and reacts accordingly? It's called the rider. More generally, has bike technology got to the point where riders are either becoming complacent or de-skilled, or both? That comes up a lot.
No. I mean, it does come up a lot, and it's that basic thing of there was a point where electronics were intrusive, and that's when electronics were rubbish, because you could feel them intervening. There was one of the early gen multistradas. There was a road that I used to use on my commute into the office. It was so bumpy. I went down there. It was like a Christmas tree, because there's no point where both wheels are on the floor, because it's pattering all the way along, and it couldn't work out what to do. Whereas you turn everything off, you just ride over it, and it's a bit bumpy, but it's fine because you're skittering along. And same with ABS. Early ABS systems where you'd grab it and you could feel it going in early, and you could outperform. Well, good riders could outperform it. We did tests. In a controlled situation, they do. The point is that you need this stuff in the uncontrolled situations. I hit a deer in Colorado. It literally erupted right next to the front of the bike, and I thought, I'm not having that go under the wheel, so I just gassed it. It jumped, hit me on the arm. And the bike was over, flashing like a Christmas tree, completely out of line. And thank God it was a nice straight road, nothing coming. All came back.
Wow.
And I was off to the road thinking, my God, it's broken my arm. But it's without the electronics, I would have been down. No question in my mind about that. And that's what the electronics are for. Electronic. It's not for everyday riding situations. If you're in a situation where they're coming on when you're riding, you need to have a look at the way you're riding, because you're probably a little bit out of control. But it's for things like that. You come around the corner, there's a big slick of gravel. I've done that. I remember doing a tour with the guys in Scotland, and I was just checking the mirror. You're riding along, just seeing whether is that last set of headlights there. And you kind of, and I could see the road goes up, a rise, it goes up, then it carries on over the other side. And as I got to the top, I realized that's a dirt track into a field. The road goes 90 degrees and it's covered in crap. And I'm basically having to do an emergency stop while turning in on a loose surface. And again, I can feel it goes pull, pull, dump, and I'm round. On a non-ABS bike, one without cornering ABS, I'd have crashed.
Yeah. And you look at... Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, is that a lack of skill because I'm split my attention? Possibly. But a deer, you can't legislate for a deer.
Exactly, yeah.
You know, something hits you and knocks you off course.
Yeah. And I think...
You want the electronics to help out.
if people are on it... If people are honest with themselves, you want to be 100% switched on 100% of the time. But if you're honest with yourself, you can't be. You're just not going to be. You know, you are never 100% focused on a ride all the time. There's going to be moments where just it's momentary. It might even be a second, but there can be just lapses of concentration, can't there? And I mean, I don't know how you coped as a dispatch driver, but I know just commuting in and out of London, the amount of times where, on a bike, it's almost like you'd all of a sudden go, geez, how did I get here? Like, what happened to the last 5 minutes? It's amazing how you just get an autopilot, don't you? And that's when things happen, isn't it? But I think...
I think that... I was going to say, one of the differences is if you believe you can do stuff because of the electronics,
it's going to end one way.
But actually, modern electronics, you shouldn't know that they're there. It should feel exactly like riding a conventional bike. The ones that need work from the manufacturer, the ones where you're aware of them, where you've got to ride by wire and you can feel it's a bit laggy, and you don't have that precise control, where you can feel the intervention, when you can do that, you can feel it kind of not delivering the power. But I don't think that's de-skilling the rider, because also every rider learns to ride to the bike. You learn to ride to the character of the machine, don't you? So.
And then you look at modern bikes now, and there's modern bikes out there with like 200 Newton meters of torque. There's modern bikes out there with 180, 190, over 200 brake horsepower now, and it's not everybody, I admit, but there's a lot of us out there that like the bragging rights to say you've got those big figures. There's not hope in hell that you can ride that bike without the gadgetry. You know what I mean? Like, you could not go out onto your normal road and give that bike beans, not worrying about the speed limits, giving it beans without the gadgetry that's on that bike. If you can, then you're a damn good rider and you need to be on the track. There are some people out there, undoubted, but most people, there's not a hope you'd tame that bike. Not a hope you'd tame it. That S1000RR, if you turn it all off, good luck. The new Super Duke car, if you turn everything off, good luck. You know what I mean? One hell of a ride, but I wouldn't be confident I'd get to my final I'd get to my final destination, but it would be some up there or down there, I think, one of the
Yeah. Now, I mean, I think the thing is, electronics are a good thing when they're good.
Yeah.
Electronics when they're a bad thing aren't good, because they intrude, they spoil the ride, but they don't make you less safe. And I think there are very few people that actually get lulled into a false sense of security and push too hard because they think the electronics will
never rely on it.
They're called test drivers. It's but I mean, there's one guy that we used to work with, and he was famous for, he would just get mid corner and just 100% because he knew the traction would catch him. I've never had the faith to do that.
I shit it with launch control. I shit it with launch control. I can't do it.
But yeah, they have their place and they're useful, and I think the way I look at it, all electronics, all of those rider aids things, they're just insurance, and they're like your paper insurance policy. You hope you never need it.
No, good point. Yeah. Right, John Gore. Question to both. Simon, did your travels across the USA, Australia, etc. change you as a person? And Bruce, you said your round the world changed you. Have you changed back, or are you still a hippie? Yeah, how did you find it then? Was it life changing?
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, that was part of the point. I set off I made the decision to go at a real low, and it was a proper kind of, what am I going to do next? My marriage had exploded pretty much overnight, and I didn't know how to react to that. And so I thought, well, I've got to ride my bike. And a large part of that, it was motorcyclist therapy, just getting my head straight. What's been heartening or reassuring is people say, but you're just like your old self. I think I was, but I think there's a period before I went when I wasn't. Just from stress from work. And so, yes, it made a positive change, but mostly that change was reverting back to just being the person I always was anyway. Because I think the negative changes before I went on the trip. The trip was, it was a therapeutic thing. It was very healthy. It did help me reassess my priorities and what I wanted to do. And, I'm largely just doing a very basic journalistic job. I'm not interested in, becoming an editor again or doing anything stellar. That's, I'm more interested in just having a nice, relaxed time, just having a nice life, not worrying about having a nice career.
No, absolutely.
It's refocused my priorities, which I think was a good thing. I mean, your ride was kind of semi-therapy anyway, wasn't it? Because it was the response to your mum.
Yeah, massively. Yeah, I mean, there was a big sort of emotional commitment in that, because I promised my mum I would do it. So there was that, and the longer I was on the road, there was more a sort of, I wanted to set an example for my boy. I kind of felt, here's my therapy session again, I'm on the couch. I kind of felt, I felt like I let my son down, because his mum and I split up when he hadn't even turned a year old yet when his mum and I split up. And I always felt, I mean, we were 21 years of age, both students at uni. It was, we were living together and that, but it all happened a lot quicker than we expected, kind of thing. And I always felt very guilty, because, that wasn't what I planned. I didn't plan on my kid not having his dad around when he grew up. My boy's always been part of my life, and I'm always part of his life, but he didn't grow up with me in the same house or even the same street. I was in London in the Old Bill, and I saw him. There was years when I probably saw him 2-3 times in that year, and I felt really bad about that. So it was like I wanted to sort of show him one thing: your dad's not a dick. Your dad's all right. 2, I wanted to be a bit of a role model, an example that if you set your mind to something, you can do it. You can go for it, and also that there's a big old world out there. Go for it. If you want to do something, just go for it. So there was a lot of that, and then there's a load of things. Like I'd spent, how long I'd been in the Old Bill? I think 10 years at that point, and I was just starting to think, I don't know if I fit in this anymore. The job was, even in 10 years, the job had changed a lot, and I'd been involved in some stuff, and I just started to think, I've seen how the corporate animal of the Met, I'd seen how it treated people who I knew personally, people who I respected and thought, they are class A humans, and I'd seen how they'd been villainized by the job and the media and totally being made out to be things that they weren't. And it started to leave a bad taste in my mouth. So it was probably the beginning of the end for me in terms of being in the Old Bill. Certainly once I came back, I was like, I don't fit in this anymore. I'm just not that person anymore.
Did you find, for me, the changing back is the interesting bit? Did you find that, because there is that initial kind of dip when you get back, it's I'm back here. When I arrived in the middle of winter, it's just Jesus. Why have I just left Sydney where it's glorious weather to come back? And there is that kind of lull. I mean, I think I'm quite lucky that it was quite my lull was about 3 or 4 days, then it kind of I picked up. But I'm more concerned, my reversion back to being the grumpy, stressed out creature I was before I went on the trip. I'm not. I think the change in attitude from the trip is prevailing. I'm relaxed.
Awesome.
I don't fret about stuff. It comes. It is what it is. So I get on with it. But did you find that because you had a big drop after you got back? Have you kind of got back to the more cheerful version of yourself?
Absolutely, definitely now. But the first year and a bit was really bad with me. I literally just sort of nosedived, to be perfectly honest. Just couldn't. I didn't felt like I belonged in my job. I didn't felt like I belonged being home, like stationary. I couldn't cope with. I couldn't cope with being just back with my missus around me all the time. I couldn't cope with things not changing every day, because I'd spent a year and a half with being in a new place every single night, and I just didn't know who I was. I didn't know, was the last 4 and a bit years worth it, because I sold everything I owned to do that trip, and it was just like shit. What was the point of that?
I think that's to do with it. This is why I limited the length of my trip, because it's the luxury of having been around travellers or doing the job. I can notice the guys that were out there for more than 4 months.
Oh, you've gone all quiet.
I've just got someone trying to phone me. Let me just ignore that. I've seen the guys that were out for more than 4 months never seemed to stop. And when they did, the longer they were out, the harder it hit them when they stopped. Yeah. So I kind of tried to avoid that by limiting the length of the trip. And also because I didn't have the budget to go longer.
For me, it was definitely, I sort of resigned myself to, I just sort of almost resigned myself to, I'm back and this is what life's like now, and I've got to make, not the best of it, but it was like, the dream, that side of the dream, I've done it, and this is life now, so let's just crack on. We'll make the most of whatever you can. Job's the job, you've got to earn money, but I'm going to make sure I enjoy myself outside of the job. So, again, my wife's amazing, and we would do that. Every year we'd say, right, our holiday for this year is we're going to go and do this. And she loves the whole freedom side of it. So, like I said, we'd fly somewhere, hire a big truck, hit the road. Beautiful. So that, explore. And then I've got my own tours as well that I do on the bike. So I had little tastes of it. And then what happened in my, happened in my job. There was somebody put a complaint in, and I was sort of effectively suspended whilst they were doing this ridiculous investigation. And then they put this embargo on me where they said, you have to stop the whole social media. You've got to stop TeapotOne. You cannot do that anymore, which I just thought was insanity. They were worried about the negative impact that might have on their reputation. And that sort of was it for me, really. I just thought, I value more what I have here, what I've built around TeapotOne and the community that we got here. I just thought that means more to me than a job. I can get another job. I don't, it's a wage. That's all it is. Yeah. And then things have just gone the way they've gone, where effectively this now has replaced the old bill, and nearly replaced the old bill in terms of a wage. So, money's tighter than it ever was, but I am living my own little dream. So I get to ride test bikes, create videos, go on trips. Fine, happy days. What's not to speak to people like you? What's not to like about this?
What's not to like?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, I can't. If I lean on the table, the camera on top one, I'll stop leaning on the table.
Cool. Well, that was a deep one, John. Nice one.
It was very deep.
Where are we at now? God, we are at 2 hours 40. We'll have to start rounding this up, because I think the camera will melt in a second. Jacques Wood. Yeah. Please give my warm regards to Simon from my dad, Steve. Oh, Steve and I, we had a great time with him and Weeble in Italy many years ago, and he inspired my dad, to put pen to paper, and write about it. I do have a question for you both. Can you share any motorcycling stories that you couldn't laugh about at the time but can now?
I learned pretty early on that you've got to laugh at yourself, because if you don't, then, especially crashing, the first crash you have, you take really seriously. But you soon work out that it is like everything. And it goes through life. It's always serious when terrible when it happens to you. It's the end of the world. And then you work out that everyone else has done it. You know, to some extent, whether it's a crash or a divorce or a promotion or a sacking or whatever, every situation, good or bad, and particularly the bad ones, the ones that you just think, oh. If you ask around, 2/3 of the people that you know, they've had exactly the same experience. And the only way to get through those tough bits is not to take yourself too seriously. You've got to learn to laugh at it. Now, I think for me, that was the biggest thing I got out of doing the big trip, was actually, I was at the point of letting go of taking myself seriously before that. But, the big trip, just, you realise how insignificant you are on the scale. I think how vast the world is, how many people there are. You can't take yourself seriously. If bad things happen, they just happen. So you've got to just find a way to get it fixed.
Exactly. You either give up, admit defeat, and that's it, or you just keep going, figure it out, ask for help. Something happens, doesn't it?
Yeah. And I suppose the one I couldn't laugh about at the time was the very first night I had a 125. I rode out and I crashed on sugar beet. I hit 3 sugar beet on the side of the road. Obviously fallen off a lorry. 3 beet clustered on the side of the road. I rode through them like an idiot, wobbled, fell over at about 10 miles an hour, dropped the bike, scuffed it slightly, picked it up, dropped it on my hand, and that's what damaged me. It was a bugging up the thumb, dropping the bike on it, not by actually crashing. Well, that wasn't funny at the time, but it's very funny now. Well, funny to me.
Blimey. God, I couldn't laugh about it at the time, but I can now. Do you know, I'm sort of like you. Everyone knows I had a bad time in Mauritania and West Africa, and I don't laugh about that now, but I do look back and I think, was it as bad as I thought it was at the time? I do think to myself,
I've heard the story. I think it was.
Yeah, I don't know, because I was with this older South African guy. He went through the same as me, and all he said. I still don't know exactly what he used to do. He'd just come back from Afghanistan, and he was in some sort of... He wasn't in the military, but he was some sort of weaponsy type
private assassin
guy. Yeah. But I mean, he was 60-odd years of age, but he'd just spent time out in Afghan and Iraq. And bearing in mind, this was 2012, so... I didn't ask too many questions, but all I remember him saying is once after we got taken at the border and we got out of that, we got through it, and we got to Dakar, I remember being sat in this little hotel room with him, and the pair of us were like shell-shocked, and I remember him just turning to look at me and he went, that wasn't very good, was it? And that was literally his own words. And I was sat there on the bed, just like shell-shocked, thinking, I want to stand in the shower and suck my thumb and rock, nothing like that happened. But at one point we were in a concrete room with guns pointed at us, with them playing Russian roulette and, a few other bits. And I just thought to myself, Jesus, did that happen? Or has my mind made it up? Because his reaction wasn't my reaction. I suppose I'm laughing about it now, but at the time, nah, I definitely wasn't. Right, how about, that is now nearly 3 hours. How about we just do a random, I will do a random scroll and we'll stop and we'll take that question.
We'll do one more question,
right. Well, we're nearly at the end. Right, there we go. Richard Priestley. Hi, Bruce and Simon. Question for you both. You can go anywhere in the UK for a couple of days road riding. Where would you go, and what is it about that place that makes you choose it? P.S. Great choice of bike with the XR, Simon.
My default is normally the west coast of Scotland, just because the A87, Invergary to Skye is probably my favourite road in the UK. Absolutely, just beautiful, lovely flowing road, great scenery, it's got everything. Last time I went to Scotland, out there, it was so busy. I got a bit frustrated. I look at it now. The Scottish borders, I go there a lot because I'm friends with the guys that run the McClue Arms Hotel in Moffat, which is a great destination. There's amazing riding around there, and it's a lot quieter. And also, I just love the riding through the Pennines to get there, whether it's through Middleton and Teesdale or up and then across, going up through Kilda. There's great riding to get there, and it's a bit closer. So certainly Scotland, whether it's the southern uplands and the borders or the west coast, one of those two. And which bike? Again, any bike, whatever bike is available.
Like it. I'm exactly the same as you. Scotland, I was going to say all round Moffat, down in that southwest. I never used to think there was that great riding there, and I'd go straight by it and head for the west. But I met up through social media, I met up with some folks that said, we'll meet you at Moffat and we'll take you on a route up towards Loch Lomond. My God, my mind was blown. Okay, you haven't got the mountainous type forest roads that you get on the west of Scotland, but some of these roads were amazing. And we were on sports bikes enjoying ourselves. Fucking hell, it was insane. It was great fun. So a couple.
It's so quiet up there, isn't it?
Yeah, nothing at all. So a couple of days I would definitely head for Scotland. I did Scotland in a day on one of my UK rides. Insanity, wouldn't recommend it, but wow, just the diversity of the country in terms of riding is amazing to do if you get the weather.
There is that.
And bike. Well, I don't think I've mentioned it in this one. Normally I can't stop mentioning it, but I will mention it. The GS. GS for me is the best bike in the world because it does everything. So I would take the GS. There you go, I mentioned it. Right, dude. Wow, I cannot believe that is 2 hours 45 minutes. That is mind blowing.
Wow.
Sheesh.
I talk a lot.
Well, mate, don't worry about it. That's what this is all about. But we haven't covered all the Patreon questions, and there's still loads of Instagram and loads of Facebook. So maybe feel free to answer any of the questions on Instagram and on Facebook if you like, or we can do this again. Come on, and we'll do more. It's up to you.
Yeah, I mean, you work out when you want to space them out. I think two back to back is probably overkill for people. But we can. Okay,
cool.
We can do a part two. I'll wear the same shirts.
Exactly, yeah. I've only got a couple of t-shirts. I got these for free.
And it'll be slicker with the technology next time because I won't be such an arse about it. I'll know how to get it set up. I probably wasted 20 minutes.
I was going to say
that,
it took us about 20 minutes at the start to get everything hopefully working. Hopefully it's all worked. Yes.
So I'll download this and WeTransfer you the file from
Beautiful.
the GoPro.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll chat about. We're still recording at the moment, so we'll sort that out after this. Simon, awesome, mate. Thank you so much for coming on. I really do appreciate it. It's been lovely to have a good chat with you, and I cannot wait to do some more of your routes. Now that we've pretty much got freedom, I'm going to be getting on my new bike and hitting the road again. Before we finish, is there anything you want to plug? You got any more books? Obviously, you got your website. Feel free.
I mean, the big plug is the website, really. That I haven't been doing so much on the blog, but obviously the full story of the big trip is there. It was done every 3 days. There was an update, but all of the UK downloads for local riding are there. There are European trips, self-guided trips, and the key thing is if you want me to plan a route just for how you ride, details are there to get in touch with me, and that's really how I'm hoping to pay the bills in the future, is to just do that full time.
I will make sure I direct, because I get asked all the time, I will direct people your way, because I know nothing compared to the Dalai Lama here, who knows all of the roads. Simon, awesome, man. Thank you so much for coming on. Really do appreciate you coming on. Folks, I hope you've enjoyed this one. You got any queries or anything, send them Simon's way to his website. Check out in the description for the video and the podcast description. All his links will be there, so make sure you give him a follow, a like, a share, all of the above. Right, folks, keep on keeping on, keep doing your thing. If you've not left a review yet on the podcast, feel free. 5-star, thank you very much. Look after those that you love. Get on out there, do your thing. But most importantly, live your life. Woo-ha!